Selamat pagi, Bapak Ibu. Scheduled for today, I'd like to introduce you to the speakers. I'm sure you've all met Amanda. So Dr. Amanda Schiller, she is the Partnership and Linkages Advisor at the Australia Awards in Indonesia. And she'll be leading the workshop for today. And my name is Vina. I'm the Senior Manager of Linkages and Enrichment at the Australia Awards in Indonesia. And I'm going to co-facilitate this workshop with Amanda. So nice to meet you all, Bapak Ibu. Hopefully we're going to have great discussions and exercise throughout the day. We're going to discuss and learn how important networking is. Just before your departure to Australia, maybe these are some skills that you need to learn to prepare yourself. So learn how important networking is. And by the end of the workshop today, we hope that we learn some differences about networking in Australian context versus Indonesian context. So we'll see some cultural aspects of networking. We'll also learn some networking tools, so practical tools and strategies to grow your network in Australia. And also hopefully by the end of today, all of us will have an increased confidence to do networking in Australia. We're going to have 4 different sections of the workshop for today. The first one, the first session is the value of networking. So we'll learn how important networking is, and that networking that is diverse is really crucial. And we'll learn from some of our alumni to share their experience about how they do networking in Australia and who are their network. And then session 2, networking in cultural context. We'll learn about the cultural aspects of networking. So you learn, you'll do some exercises to practice how to do networking in Indonesia versus Australia. And then we're going to go to session 3, which is tools and tips, so practical tools and tips for networking through online platforms. The use of social media, LinkedIn, emails, and so on. And then at the first last session, we'll learn about face-to-face networking. So those are pretty much the layout of today's session. We're going to have 4 sessions. We're doing a couple of morning tea and afternoon tea in between of those sessions, and we'll have lunch break at around 11:45. So that some of you who want to do Friday prayers, you can still go to the nearest mosque to do that. As I mentioned, we'll do some coffee breaks and also lunch break. And we're going to use several different activities using Mentimeters and Slido. We're going to share that with you. And because today's session is quite packed, as you can see, we've got a lot to cover today, but we hope that you have active participation throughout the day. We will have some dedicated sessions for Q&A, but if you want to, at any time, if you want to clarify something or raise, raise your hands to ask the questions. And I think that's pretty much all about the housekeepings. I'm now going to invite my colleague, Amanda, to start with the first session. Thank you.
Terima kasih, Vina. So I wanted to start by properly introducing myself. So as you know, my name is Amanda. I'm the Partnerships and Linkages Advisor for Australia Awards Indonesia. I really am passionate about building connections and strengthening the relationship between Australia and Indonesia. And this has been something that I've been passionate about for a long time. And so I'm really fortunate and lucky that I get to do that as part of my job. And so many of my jobs actually have focused on this, working both with Australians and with Indonesians. I live in Jakarta and I love living in Indonesia, of course, because the food is amazing and the people are very friendly and the weather is great. There is no winter. I only need one wardrobe. But most of all, I love living in Indonesia because it challenges me in so many ways. It helps me to see the world through different eyes, in a different light. It makes me think differently. It makes me understand my own culture in a different way. And I think that's really exciting, and I love it. I first moved to Jakarta and lived there for a couple of months in 2011 as a postgraduate research student. And I was there for 2 months to do some field work for my PhD thesis. And I'll tell you some stories about that time as part of today's session. And since then, I've moved back a few times, and every time, there's an element of adjustment, which you'll all experience when you move to Australia. So I want to weave some of those stories into the session for today. But before we start, I just wanted to ask you some questions. So just by show of hands, who in this room likes networking? Up higher? Okay, so I think that's maybe like 30%. Who of you would rather do their tax return than go to a networking event, or, I don't know, clean the bathroom or something? And who really doesn't like networking? Yeah, okay. Who of you would say that you are introverted? Yeah, I think I'm introverted. Yeah, okay. That's good, actually. That's absolutely fine. And so the rest of you think you're extroverted. Let me make a confession to you. I have learned to love networking, but it was hard. I didn't like it to start with. Like, I was one of the people that would rather do my tax return than go to a networking event and meet new people. But the good news is that there are some, tips and tricks that we will go through today that will help you to be more excited and to find networking easier and more fun. So that's the intention for today, is to make you more confident and to help you understand why it should matter. So to illustrate why it should matter to you, I thought I would share two kind of personal stories about myself with you that will help you see how networking has been valuable and important in my life. So the first one is about the jobs that I've had. So the other night, I went back through my LinkedIn profile and my memory, and I counted that in my entire life, I've had 22 jobs. Some of them were casual, as a young teenager, and others are, more serious professional jobs. 22 jobs in total. Okay, and this is how I got them. This is the breakdown. So of 22 jobs, 4 of them were jobs that I saw an advertisement in the newspaper or online. I submitted an application, I went through an interview process, and I was successful. I must say, I've been through the process probably more like 50 times or 100 times. Like, the number of jobs I've applied for far exceeds the number that I got. 9 times of those jobs, I came to that job because somebody from my network, somebody that I knew, a former colleague, a former lecturer, a friend, recommended me or introduced me to the person that was hiring or the company. 4 of them, I approached the company or the organisation and basically asked for a job. To be honest, that was more like casual jobs when I was a teenager. I went to restaurants and I said, "Hi, this is my CV. Do you have any work?" And for 5 of them, I was headhunted. So people found my profile on LinkedIn, or they had heard about me or come across me. Maybe it was people in my network, through conversations, and they they recognized my and approached me for a particular job, right? So this, I think 18 of the 22 jobs that I've had, I largely got because of my network. So I think it's important and it's useful, and you can reap lots of benefits. Okay, my second little story is 5 or 6 years ago, I was working as kind of a broker for Australian universities who wanted to send their students to Southeast Asia on short courses, like little study tours. And the company that I worked for had offices all around the region, and we had quite good relationships, and to bring these kind of guest speakers and so on into the course so that the students could learn from them. And we were running a particular study tour in Singapore for politics and international relations students. How great an opportunity to have a lecture provided an opportunity to ask questions of the former Australian Foreign Minister. So I got his email. He was working at the University of Sydney, so the email address was pretty easy to find. And I wrote him an email and I said, "Hi, Mr. Carr, we've heard that you'll be in Singapore for this event. I'm working with the University of Adelaide. We're running a study for students of international relations and politics, and we wondered if we could have an hour of your time to come and speak to our students about your career and about the relationship with Singapore and all of the amazing things that you're doing." And he wrote back and he said, yes, it was amazing. And so students had this incredible opportunity that they would never have got if I hadn't sort of taken a chance and reached out and sent an email. The worst thing that could have happened was he said no, right? So that's the power of networking. That's the sort of thing that networking can do for you, and the impact on your life. So hopefully that kind of demonstrates that you should kind of bother to invest time and energy in building your networks. But what is it? I want to hear some perspectives from the group. What do you think networking is?
I guess that besides we build a relationship, we should make some mutual benefit, not only for us, but for the other.
Yes, that's great. So yes, it's about building relationships, but it's building relationships with the intention of deriving some kind of future benefit, right? Yeah, great. Okay, good answers. I think networking is something that we all do every day. And I think Indonesians kind of collectively are really good at networking. Like Indonesians are very social people, right? So a lot of it comes quite naturally to you. And I guess I am kind of naturally quite social too. I'm good at chatting to people, but you put me in a room with a bunch of people I don't know at a conference, and I start to get a bit like, oh. So really, if we think of it the same way as we approach our, meeting new people in our everyday life, it's much less scary. Systematically, I think networking is this. It's a powerful system, through which we can share information, ideas and knowledge, advice, mentoring, help build collaborations and partnerships, and get support and encouragement. And for all of you who are about to be plucked out of your your existing networks in Indonesia and your support systems, this is super important, right? So the benefits are big, and it's worth it. We tapped on this. So between building relationships and deriving benefit, there's actually quite a bit of work and energy and time and effort that goes into building your relationships. So networking is about investing your time and your energy in relationships to build trust, so that when you need something from somebody, they're willing to help you with it, right? You can't just go up to somebody on the street and say, I don't know, hey, I need you should drop everything that you're doing and come and spend a week working with me so I can solve this problem. They're going to say, what? I don't want to, and I'm not going to pay you. They're going to say, no way. But if you, I don't know, spend 6 months or 12 months getting to know that person, and you gradually, incrementally build trust and support each other in smaller and then bigger ways, then in 6 months' time, when you ask them to come and work with you, they might be more inclined to say yes, right? So it does take time and it does take effort, but it doesn't have to take heaps of time. Okay, this notion of social capital. What is capital? Assets. Yeah, exactly. It's assets. So social capital is really thinking about your relationships. And this sounds extractive. It's not. Thinking about your relationships in the same way that you think about money in the bank, right? So you build up your relationships with people, you build up trust so that when you need them, you can draw on them, right? If you start with no money in the bank, there's no money there when you need it. If you start with poor relationships, when you need something from somebody, it's going to be much more difficult to get them to help you. So that's the idea of social capital. And finally, networking is a cycle. So you meet people, you listen and you learn from them, you share bits of yourself, you make connections. Following up is a really key thing, and we'll talk about that later. And then staying in touch, building the relationship. And it might be the case that you don't necessarily maintain all of the networks that you have for all of your life, right? Who's got friends that they don't, friends from school that they're not in touch with anymore? We've all got those people. And it has to be like that because, we have a finite amount of time and a finite amount of energy. Okay, so the benefits of networking: you can learn from each other and share knowledge, collaborate and work together. This is kind of a repeat of the last slide. You can mentor each other, provide, advice and encouragement. A key one is that the people in your network can help you meet other people who might be useful to you or relevant to you or can help you. So it's like snowball networking, if you like. They can provide you with a recommendation, or they can recommend you to an employer for a job or a research collaborator or whatever it might be. Build partnerships and importantly become friends. And I think this is the big one, right? Like particularly if you find networking scary or whatever, just look at everyone as a potential friend and it just gets way more exciting, right? So who should you have in your network? And I think we saw some insights into this question from the panel, right? Like it's not just necessarily about professional connections and so on. I want to cast your mind back to the sessions with Pak Victor last Friday, this time last week. Remember, he mentioned that as humans, we are naturally attracted to people like ourselves, right? Like we want to surround ourselves with people who maybe think like us, who look like us, who eat like us. It's comfortable and it's familiar, and we can bond more closely with those people. And it's easy, right? It's easy, simple. It's the similarity attraction principle or something, I think he called it. And it's great. It's important to have those people in your life because they're going to become close friends and so on, and be a great source of support. And you'll find when you go to Australia that you will probably build very strong and close friendships and relationships with other AAI scholars and other Indonesians that are studying in Australia, and they'll become close friends, right? So that's fantastic. But I want to make a case for diversity, and I think Pak Firman mentioned this and a few other panelists as well. It's important to keep your networks broad, right? And I want to show you a little sort of slightly theoretical piece. This is an article that was in Harvard Business Review ages and ages ago, 2007, but it demonstrates kind of 3 levels of networks and 3 different kinds of people that you might want to have in your network. So they talk about having an operational network. And that's the people that you work with closely on a day-to-day basis. They help you do your job or achieve, whatever you want to do in your day-to-day life. And then they talk about having a personal network, and that's your social connections, your friends, your family. It might be people that you work with that become your friends. And we'll share these slides with you later. And yeah, I mean, these people are also really important, right? They're going to provide you with support. There might be goals, but they make your life richer, yeah? Lebih kayu. And then there's your strategic network. When it comes to, complex problem solving and things like that, it's those people that are potentially going to be the most useful to you because they're going to challenge the way you think, help you generate new ideas, and innovate, really. So really the point that I want to make with this slide is that diversity in your network is really important. So think broadly, like it's the yoga club, it's the picking your kids up at school, or having conversations with your neighbours. It might be sharing a house with Australians or anything like that. Like you can build your networks from the weirdest places, right? Anywhere, every person you meet is an opportunity to build a network. I want to introduce, I know you've already had this document for over a week and we've talked about it last week, but I'd talk a little bit about where this came from, the personal development and networking plan that you're the first cohort of Australia Awards Indonesia scholars to use this document. And we want feedback on it. It's like a pilot, right? But where did it come from? So we know that international students studying in Australia can find it really difficult to build networks and friendships with Australians because of that culture gap, right? And because, you're busy and it's easy to hang out with other Indonesian students and other international students. And it can be hard. It can be really, really challenging and tiring, like especially at the end of a long day of studying. And not only studying, but studying in a different language, it's tiring, and you just want to surround yourself. Yeah. So it can be a challenge. We know that you're going to have a lot on your plate, right? And as we saw this morning, only 30% of you really like networking, right? So it can be scary, and it can be hard, and it can, putting yourself out there is a challenge, especially the bit at, talking to new people. And we know that it can be really hard to know where to start, to find the people that you need to have in your network. And to know how to approach them in a way that's going to be most effective. And so we thought, let's put together this personal development and networking plan to provide some advice. And I wish I had this when I came to Indonesia, the reverse version. You've had the document for a week or so. I just wanted to pause briefly here to see if there were any questions. If any come up, feel free to email us or speak to us in the break. There will be plenty of opportunities, and we'll also do a survey. We're going to do this exercise, I think, during the break. So I'll just very quickly run you through it now, but it's just a conversation for you to have with whoever you end up talking to at lunch or during the break. So you've done the, hopefully, in the networking plan, this exercise where you map your existing networks, yeah? Has most people done that? Yes, great. So these are just some talking points for you to have a conversation about that exercise. So how did you find it? Were there any surprises with maybe how the network is, or whether you focus on the same people all the time, or whatever? Where are your strongest networks? Are they in your friendship group? Are they in your work group? Are they people that you went to school with? These. Are your most useful relationships all from the same kind of category? And are the people where you currently invest the majority of your time and energy, are they the people with whom you have the strongest relationships?
Thanks, Amanda. So I think just a few wrap up for what we learned this morning. I think from our speakers, from Amanda and also the alumni speakers, is that networks is critical to success. I think we've got a slide for that. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. So networks are critical to success, not just in your careers, but also in your life. And that, as Mas Firman mentioned, networking is investment. So it's a cycle that doesn't just stop at after you meet someone, but you need to invest your time and build trust. And you don't know who might be useful for you in the future. So that's the second one. And then we learned that the more diverse your network, the more useful it is for you. So those are the take-home points that we learned from the first session this morning. Okay, I think we'll have a coffee break for 10 minutes.
Okay. So this next session, which will take us through until about 11:45, is about the cultural aspect of networking, right? So you've all, you're all probably pretty, even if you don't think you are, you're all pretty expert at relationship building in your own cultural context, right? We do things slightly different, you know, like Pat Victor mentioned the other week, culture is the way we do things around here, and it's slightly different. So the objectives for this next hour and a little bit, there are two. The first is that you'll hopefully understand that your degree of success in networking in Australia, with Australia, I should say, is going to be contingent or depend upon your ability to adapt your approach to the cultural context. The second one is that you'll begin to build your knowledge, your knowledge, of kind of the cultural protocols or the rules that are unspoken of networking in the Australian context. This is the outline. I'm going to start again with another little story, and then we're going to talk very briefly about some cultural theory, and Pat Victor already gave you quite a bit of this last week, so that's terrific. And then we're going to do some exercises in comparison and some discussion comparing Indonesian and Australian approaches, just to bring out some of those differences. And then we'll hear from our fabulous alumni once more, which I'm very much looking forward to. Okay, so short story. I told you when I introduced myself earlier that it wasn't my first time in Indonesia, but the first time I sort of lived in Indonesia holiday was in 2011. And I was a postgraduate student. I was writing a PhD thesis on whether foreign aid can be used as an instrument of counterterrorism. And I was doing a case study of Australian aid to Indonesia. And so I thought, you know, I want to do field work. I was prepared to do field work, so I had studied Indonesian a little bit in primary school and high school. When I started my PhD, I thought I want to do field work in Indonesia, so I'm going to pick up Indonesian again. And so I had been studying it at university for a couple of years. And I came to Indonesia, I had 2 months because I was teaching. I was a class tutor, and so I had 2 months of holidays in between the semesters, and I wanted to come, and I had a list of like, I think 10 or 12 people that I wanted to meet and do qualitative interviews with. So I arrived, and yes, this is the story of what happened. So I had previously had pretty good success rate in Australia of getting interviews with people, building connections by sort of introducing myself over email. So this is an example of what I'd done in Australia that worked. This was to a lady called Sydney Jones, who at the time was working with the International Crisis Group, and she was one of the leading researchers on Indonesian terrorism. So I got her email address off of, you know, the International Crisis Group website, and I typed out this message. Dear Sydney, my name is Amanda Schiller. I'm a PhD candidate at UniSA. Research, I'm exploring the question of whether foreign aid can be an effective instrument of counter-terrorism. My thesis is going to include a case study on Australian aid to Indonesia after the 2002 Bali bombings. And your work with International Crisis Group has been really invaluable to me in shaping my understanding of the issue. So thank you for the work that you've done. I gave her a compliment right up front. I've seen that you'll be in Adelaide, which is where I was based, in September to attend a conference. I'd love to talk with you more about the connections between policing, justice, prisons, so on. While you're in Adelaide, I was wondering if you'd be willing to be interviewed by me as part of my research. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Kind regards, Amanda Schiller, PhD candidate, University of South Australia, etc., right? And she responded, hi Amanda, thanks for your email. Yes, I'd love to catch up. Let's chat, right? So it was great. We met and chatted for an hour and a half, and it was fantastic. So then, fast forward 6 months, I came to Indonesia and I had my list of 10 or 12 people that I wanted to interview. And I was based at a think tank, Centre for Strategic and International Studies in Jakarta, and they gave me a cubicle and I went in and I started sending emails. But I thought, I'm going to adjust my approach, right? Because I'm in Indonesia and I'm prepared for this. So I wrote an email in Indonesian. It was pretty good. I mean, there might be some linguistic errors in there, but that's interesting, right? I'm trying. So I wanted to interview Pak Tito Karnavian, who was the Kelapa Densus 88 at the time. It was a pretty important interviewee, right? And in this email, it's basically the same format as the one that I sent to Sydney Jones. I can't even remember where I got his email address from, but I think maybe one of my colleagues gave it to me. Apa terjadi? What do you think happened? Nothing. I had 2 months, and I sent that email obviously to different people in slightly different forms, to everyone on my list, right? And I sat in my little cubicle at CSIS every day hoping for a response, and I got nothing. From pretty much from all 12. I didn't spend the whole 2 months waiting, right? Eventually, I said to my colleagues, "This is a problem. Can help." So the point is, the approach that works in Australia doesn't necessarily work here, right? And the approach that works here isn't necessarily going to work for you in Australia. So you need to adapt. So what did I, after a couple of weeks of no response, I think I sent follow-up emails, right, as well, and still nothing. So I was talking to one of my colleagues and I was like, oh, I know him pretty well. Let me just hook you up. I'll introduce you. And like 2 days later, I was sitting in, SJBD chatting away with Pak Tito Karnavian. Like, it was great. If I'd stuck with my Australian approach, I would have got nowhere. Yeah. Okay. So that's just a little story about the importance of adapting your approach. And it's an example of this at play, right? So this is an extension of what Pak Victor was talking about last week. It's called the Cultural Iceberg. You might have seen it before. But it's this idea that culture exists at multiple levels, right? So on the surface, at the top, stuff that's really obvious, things like food, dress, crafts, visual arts, literature, language, all of that stuff that you can see, right? That's what kind of the most obvious thing that we think about with culture. And I thought I was being really clever and you know, adapting to culture by focusing on language, right? I use bahasa. But not realizing that there was all this stuff that sits below the surface that I wasn't aware about, and I hadn't adjusted my approach enough. So it's the unspoken rules. Sorry, it's not super clear, but we'll share the slides later. The unspoken rules about how society operates, how relationships between people operate, the level of comfort that people have with closeness, or the level of, you know, how receptive people are to receiving, you know, getting an email from a stranger, or a phone call from a stranger, or a WhatsApp message from Australia. One of the key differences is, I think, that if no one in Australia sends a WhatsApp message to someone that they've never met before, right? It's just, you won't get a response. It's the response of the email. Yeah, so things like courtesy, concepts of time, promptness, all of that stuff, rules of conduct, facial expressions, how much people smile, right? How much people are willing to laugh, what people think is beautiful or attractive, the way people handle things like dating, you know, to marriage, stuff like that. All of that exists under the surface, and really the only way to, you know, you can read a lot, and I encourage you to read a lot about Australian culture and the way Australians are, and chatting to these very valuable resources that you have in the room, our alumni panel and online, and other alumni that you probably know about their experiences. But the main way that you will learn about these, you know, under the surface aspects of Australian culture is through experience, right? So be prepared to put yourself out there and reflect, I guess, as you go along on your relationships as they're developing or not developing, and maybe think about why. And I encourage you to have conversations with, you know, other Australian friends that you make, other Indonesians who are in the same situation, and just be, you know, oh, you know, I've been trying to build this relationship with somebody. It's not working. Like they don't seem to like me very much, or they're not responding to my messages. Like, what do you think could be going wrong? And just have a conversation about it, think about it. And you might just need to adjust your approach somehow. And we'll talk a bit more about what that looks like. But I just wanted to highlight this notion that some aspects of culture are not immediately obvious. Okay, so this is an exercise that I'd like us to work through kind of quickly. We're probably already over time, but it's an exercise on reflecting on your own culture, right? So, and I don't think we'll need very long to do it. Imagine that you need to build a relationship with somebody that you don't know in Indonesia, right? You know that this person can really help you to achieve, you know, something that you need to achieve, but you don't know them. How would you go about building a relationship with them and getting them to help you? And actually, rather than writing this down, maybe we'll just chat about it, right? Because it's probably pretty easy. Does anyone want to volunteer to kind of, yeah, just a second, I'll turn this on. Yeah.
So yeah, this is actually, yeah, I applied this. I don't know this, if, you know, this is what applies to me, and I don't know if it's relevant to Indonesian context or not, but this is what works for me. So earlier this year, I applied to scholarship, one of them being, you know, of course, Australia Awards, and one of them being Fulbright. And I had no experience with Fulbright scholarship because I didn't have any intention to go to to the States. But you know, just for safety measure, I want to have, you know, some sort of
A backup.
like, yeah, backup plan. So yeah, you know, I identified that there's this one Fulbright awardee. His name is Herman Saksono. He's a postgraduate research fellow in Northwestern University, and we kind of had like we have the same interest, sort of. So I think that, so what I did actually is I I googled his name. I googled his name, and I found his Twitter account. I found his Twitter account, and I went to his old tweets, and see, because of course old tweets, he wasn't very well known at the time, so there was a lot of interaction between him and his close friends. So I found out that his name is actually Mas Momon. So people who are close to him call him Mas Momon instead of like Herman or Mas Saksono. So so yeah, I went on LinkedIn. I went on LinkedIn again. What I did was actually I messaged him on LinkedIn, and then instead of calling him Herman or Mas Saksono, I call him Mas Momon. Yada 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 yada, and blah 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 and blah blah blah. And then I asked him whether he would be willing to review my Fulbright essay or not, and then I got the Fulbright because of him.
So you did some research.
Yeah.
You got your background, and you reached out and you asked. That's great. That's a good approach. Do we have one more? Yeah.
I think it's pretty simple for, I think, most of Indonesians to just make a broadcast or approach on the WhatsApp groups. So you just like kind of ask whether someone in the group knows someone from institution X or A, and then if they have the connection, then we do the personal chat to that person, and then asking for details of
lewat WhatsApp.
WhatsApp.
Okay, so you reach out to your groups on WhatsApp,
and then
you ask if anyone knows this person,
right? Or
can you share their information? And then you just directly approach them. And what do you say when you approach them? Like, so and so gave me your number.
Just like that.
Can I ask if? Yeah. Okay. Great. Any different approaches? Yeah.
So when I'm preparing to my PhD studies, I know that I want to study at Australia, and then I make some plan to reach a scholar in Australia. I'm not contact them directly through email. I try to figure out any events, scholar events such as conference or something like that, and then I join the short course. When I join the short course, I get a lot of networks, so I can identify which scholar can be potential for my studies. After that, after the event, I send he or she an email said that I was happy to join the event. Then I really appreciate their work, and then I ask him or her whether they want to surprise me or not.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting. A lot of similarities, I think, between what works in Indonesia and what works in Australia, but subtle nuances. Okay. Thank you for sharing, everybody. We're going to do a little exercise now. So for this, has everybody used Mentimeter before? So we're going to work through this kind of quickly. There's no, there are kind of righter or wronger answers, but just whatever you think, okay? It's very simple, multiple choice questions. And there are a few of them like this. Oh, yeah, okay. So in professional communication in the Australian context, which are the best options of the following choices? Using email or using a phone call? Email. 100%. Yes. There's a really weird generation. I don't know if this is the same in Indonesia. I don't think it is. In Australia, there's this really weird generational thing where people under about the age of 45 don't answer phone calls. I'm under 45. I hate talking on the phone. I really don't like it. It's so weird. I don't mind a Zoom call or whatever, but it's got to be scheduled. Yeah, email is better. Okay, next question. Same question, which is better? You can select Multiple. SMS or text message, WhatsApp message, Facebook Messenger. Okay. People think WhatsApp. WhatsApp is not it's not as popular in Australia as it is in Indonesia, right? A lot of people are not on it. And there's a different attitude to WhatsApp. So most people that do use WhatsApp don't use it for professional relationships. It's just between their friends. So if you send somebody a WhatsApp message, it might work, you know, they might respond, but it also might make them feel a little bit like you're stepping into their kind of personal space a little bit. So SMS or text message would probably be the best option. Facebook Messenger is also okay, but yeah, I reckon SMS or text is probably best of these options, but email is even better. So which is better, a message via LinkedIn or a DM on Insta? Okay, yes. Instagram is the same. It's, you know, it's like there are grey areas, of course, right? Some people have a professional page on Instagram or they use it for their business, but LinkedIn is the main professional networking site that most Australians use. Okay, next. Which are the best options of the following? Okay, dropping into their office, dropping into their house, or making an appointment? Indonesia, which of these is the best? Dropping into their house. Okay. Yes, I think both of these are correct, right? So it depends on the sector or the industry. If we're talking academic, often they have office hours, right? So times when they're in their office and it's dedicated to speak to students. But generally making an appointment is a good idea because it's respectful, you know, it allows people to plan their day and they might have something really important on. So if you just drop in, it might mess up their plans, they might not have time, they might have to sort of send you away and ask you to come back, and that can be a little bit uncomfortable. So yeah, if you can, make an appointment. But, you know, if you see them in the hallway or something, just say hi and ask them, you know, can I pop in and have a chat with you later? Okay, same question. What's best? This is where you send your email from. Is it better to use a Gmail account? Is it better to use a Hotmail account or, you know, something like that? Or to use your university or your work account? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with Gmail or Hotmail or like a personal email account, but it's better if you can. It makes you look more professional, I think, and it helps them understand that you're legitimate, I suppose, if you use your official university email account to contact people that you want to build a professional relationship with. One of the things that kind of I found interesting when I first came to Indonesia, I don't think it's quite like this so much anymore, but a lot of people, like even government employees or whatever, use their personal email account for work, right? It's not like that in Australia. People have very separate, yeah. And so I guess the same goes for where you send your email to them. Always look for their professional work account rather than their personal account.
We no longer have access to our university account.
Yeah. So the question is, how do you manage this after you're an alumni and you're back in Indonesia and you don't have access to your university account? It's fine. So you can use your, if you have a professional account for work or whatever, you can use that. You can use LinkedIn. It's okay to use your Gmail too. That's fine. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But yeah, it's probably will be better received if it's from like a professional business account. Yeah. Okay. So the question here is Australians tend to, so this is about culture. Demonstrate deep respect for seniority or treat everyone pretty much the same. Yeah. I think you all recognise that Australians are pretty casual about hierarchy, yeah? Okay. Australians tend to be quite relaxed or be very formal. Yeah, yeah, I think this is it, quite relaxed. So it's completely okay, as Victor said last week, to call your professors by their first name. You've met them a few times, and yeah, not many people wear full business suits or anything like that. Like it's people are generally pretty open and friendly, and would rather relate to somebody on a. It's interesting actually. There's a juxtaposition, a difference between the way we deal with formal communication and the way we deal with communication interpersonally, because face to face we're really chill. We just want to pretend, we want to be like together like we're friends, even if we just met. But when it's email or online or whatever, they're a bit more formal. Okay, Australians tend to be quite direct or quite indirect. Direct, yes, pretty direct. We're generally looking to be efficient. We don't want to be rude. We want to sort of spend a bit of time building a relationship, but we don't want to, we kind of want to see the point and get to the point. And most Australians are pretty comfortable saying no if they feel like they need to, although they'll find a nice way to do it. Yeah, okay. All right, this is a multiple choice, and you should be able to select multiple options if you like. In networking conversations in the Australian context, it's usually okay to ask about their marital status or their family. Is it okay to comment on their appearance? Is it okay to ask about their religion? To ask about their ethnicity, or to talk about sport? There are multiple correct answers here. Okay. Is it okay to ask about their marital status? Yes and no. Like, people in Indonesia are very, I have so many conversations with taxi drivers that start with, are you married? I say, no, I'm not married. Or, is your husband here with you? When I say no, I say, why not? Like, you cannot say that to someone in Australia. It's talking about your family or your kids, especially, parents do this all the time, is a good way to bond with somebody, but yeah, don't get into too many details. Don't push too much if they don't share that with you automatically. To comment on their appearance, again, yes and no, right? So I find sometimes it depends on your gender and the gender of the person that you're talking to, but I find sometimes in a group networking situation, like if you're at a conference or something, saying something about someone's, obviously a compliment, never something not complimentary, but saying something about their appearance can be a good way to start up a conversation with them, right? So often their clothes. So I can say, oh my gosh, I love your jacket, Vina. Where did you get it? Like, it's amazing. And like suddenly we're having a conversation. But generally the other thing, so even friends don't talk about things like weight, right? So in Indonesia, I've got Indonesian friends from 10 years ago, and I caught up with one of them recently, and he says to me, gosh, you put on so much weight for you last time. And I was just like, oh my God. So stuff like that, no. Religion, it's an interesting one. Religion is not so important in Australia. People are typically not very religious and not outwardly religious. So, I mean, it might come up as a topic of conversation. You can ask about it, but some people might not want to talk about it. Yeah. So you just listen to their response, watch their body language, and you'll work out pretty quickly whether it's safe or not. Ethnicity, again, is a similar one. There are, Australia is a country full of migrants, and lots of migrants are very proud of where they're from. Australia has a very rich Indigenous culture that also has lots of, or cultures, I should say, that also has lots of complexities and politics attached to it. And I think it's okay to ask someone, you know, what's your background, where are you from? But again, read their body language and see what they say. And sport is always safe. Although I don't like sport, so we'll see. Okay, next. This is the last one. Is it okay to talk about the weather? Is it okay to ask about their income? How much money they make? Is it okay to talk about where they live and how far their commute is? How long did it take to get here? Their interests outside of work? And is it okay to ask for their number or their email? Yeah. You got it. So all of these things are absolutely fine, right? Except for asking about their income. So Australians' money is very private. Yeah, and that's pretty obvious. It's probably the same here too, right? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, talking about the weather, it might be a good conversation starter, but it gets a bit boring after a while. Where they live and how far their commute is, yep, sure, no worries. I think the best thing is to ask, you know, so what do you like to do on the weekends? What are you interested in? How did you get to be interested in, you know, whatever this conference is about? Ask some questions about themselves. And finally, is it okay to ask for their phone number or their email? Absolutely, that's what you're there for, right? You want without getting their contact details, how are you going to contact them again, right? So you can reach out to them on LinkedIn, sure, but it's so much easier if you can send them a message directly. And actually, asking for their number, we'll talk about this later, or their email, is a good way to kind of end the conversation and move on to a new conversation. It's like a social cue. Okay, we're feeling a bit better than we were, yeah? Okay, that's good. Yeah, we can't expect to learn everything in 1.5 hours, but hopefully we're building your confidence a little bit. Okay, so the first session this afternoon is about online networking. And then the second session after our afternoon break will be about face-to-face networking. Yeah. So our objective for this session, sorry, I'm fading in and out, is to provide you with some practical advice, tools, tips, techniques, and so on for networking in the Australian context, and to give you the opportunity to sort of do some exercises and I guess test your approach in a safe environment with friends, all of that stuff. So this is our outline. First, we're going to chat about networking research, the importance of research for networking. And we've already heard some great examples of how that can be important. And then we're going to chat about emails, LinkedIn, Source Medline. That's it. Okay, so pretty simple. Okay, internet research for networking. It's pretty simple, right? And what we tried to do in the PDMP, the Personal Development and Networking Plan, is to give you a bit of an outline of a few different techniques and ideas that can start you off on approaching your research for networking in the Australian context, because it's a minefield, right? I know when I first moved to Indonesia, and I still don't know a lot about where to start in terms of finding the people that I need to be connected with. But the beautiful thing about living in this current day and age for all of us, compared to say even 10 or 20 years ago, is that everyone lives their lives online, right? Especially in Indonesia, but also in Australia as well, right? So we've already talked a little bit about LinkedIn and how it's a powerful tool. Everyone has got a digital footprint, almost everyone. Some people are harder to find than others, but it makes it very easy compared to what it might have been like in the past. So this is really just, yeah, as I said, some hints and tips how to approach it. And I'm not going to go over everything that's in the plan in lots of detail, but just sort of some advice, I suppose. So my first bit of advice is to think like you're a recruiter or a researcher, right? So, and this works in two directions. So if we're talking about finding people to connect with, it's good advice, but it's also something good to keep in mind when we're thinking about our own digital footprint and our own online brand. Think like a recruiter and think like a researcher. So if somebody was looking for you or someone like you online, what would they find? And are you telling the story that you want to tell with your digital footprint? And that's partly LinkedIn, but it's partly like, I don't know, if you work in a university, for instance, you might have a staff homepage. It might be other forms of SOSMED, like Twitter, for example. It might be, I don't know, you might work in a field where you want to use Instagram as your way to communicate. And if all of those things are set to public, keep in mind that you can't compartmentalize, right? Like you can't have one identity that's based on LinkedIn and a completely different identity that's based on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. It all needs to represent this genuine picture of you, who you are and what you're about. So yeah, like a recruiter and a researcher. So what are you searching for? If you're looking for people that you can add to your networks, on my first instinct when I used to work in a role that was business development, and an aspect of that was international development. An aspect of that was finding the right people that we could put on our proposals who would be able to do a particular project well and be the most, the best people we could get. So it's an aspect of recruitment. And I always started, almost always, with LinkedIn, right? And we didn't always know the names of the people that we wanted, right? Sometimes we wanted to move outside the same group of people that we would work with. And so we would search, who are the people that have knowledge of, I don't know, primary education in the Philippines, and experts at pedagogy and curriculum development or something like that. So I would search those words and those phrases in combination in LinkedIn, on Google, and see what comes up and go from there. It's just like academic research in lots of ways, like one thing leads to another. So you can search for individual names if you like. You can search for organizations if you already know. So you might, let's say that you work in, what's an organization? Let's say that you work in the tax office, for instance, and you want to build networks with people that were in Australia that work in the same sector. You can search for people that work for the Australian Taxation Office. You can use that as a filter on Instagram, LinkedIn. You can search for industries and industry associations. I think somebody mentioned this earlier, but there's lots of different groups and industry associations that have conferences and all of that sort of stuff. So you can look at their membership by searching LinkedIn, other people that are interested. And the same kind of protocols apply for searching on Google. Looking at interest groups, so it gives you, I think, the option of like, you can follow particular people or express an interest in certain things. So you might say that, for instance, you're interested in early childhood education or whatever it might be. And that's a place online where you can connect with people that have similar interests. Snowball searching is one of my favorites. And it's like there's an approach in, or a methodology in qualitative research that's like snowball sampling, right? Where you talk to one person that is relevant to your field of study and you ask them a question, Who else should I talk to? Can you recommend other people that I should talk to about this topic? And social media lets you do this without even asking the question, because you can just look at their list of contacts. Who are the people you know, and you can have a quick look at their profile and see if your interests align or if you think they might be of interest to you. And then you can go back to that first person that's already a contact, and you can ask them to introduce you. Or you can just send a request, but an introduction always works better. Social media hashtags are another thing that you can follow in order to kind of identify people. So I think they work on LinkedIn, but also on platforms like Facebook and Instagram, especially Twitter. If you follow the hashtags that are in your area, you'll see the people that are posting regularly on that topic. And from there, you can strike up a conversation through their DMs or through their comments or whatever, and eventually add them to your network. And this final one came up in the alumni discussion in the previous session. You don't have to think about networking online as just about your professional networks. It's more than that. It's your support system, it's friendships, it's all of that. And as we saw in that graph that I showed that talked about the importance of diversity in networks, so your operational network, your personal network, and your strategic network, it might be that some of your strategic contacts come from more left of field contacts. And so you can use the internet to find people who have similar interests to you, right? So things like Meetup happens in Australia. Budayo mentioned clubs and societies at university. So there are lots of them. You'll probably all join PPIA, or the Indonesian Students Association. And that can be, you'll make a lot of friends there. But I encourage you to also branch out and join. It can be a really good way to meet students from other countries and from Australia as well. So follow your interests and engage in, it's also important while you're in Australia. Yes, you need to focus on your studies, but you also need to kind of look after your mental health, right? So engaging in stuff that's of interest to you and that you find fun is also important, and a good way to meet other people. And then, of course, one way I think that's an easy way to make friends and connections in Australia with Australians is to tap into the community of Australians that are interested in Indonesia, right? So there are people in Australia that study Indonesian language who have come to Indonesia on university exchange or high school exchange or short courses, and there are people that research on Indonesia. And there's also a kind of big community of Indonesian diaspora as well, so Indonesians who have often married Australians and live there. So tapping into those networks is to meet people who are likely to be interested to learn about you, and also likely to be able to introduce you to other people and so on. So some of those organisations are AYA, which stands for Australia Indonesia Youth Association. They've got a great website and a great newsletter, and they hold lots of events that you can go to. And I think it's a youth organisation. I think their age bracket's like up to 35, but I think they're fairly flexible. COSINDI is another one, so that's the Conference of Australia Indonesia Youth, but again, it goes up, and there's all sorts of other organisations as well. So if you, and this isn't something about the internet, but if you are attending a university that teaches Indonesian language, I really encourage you to reach out to the lecturers that teach Indonesian and ask them to connect you with their students as well. That's a great way to find an actual point of connection. Okay. So we talked already quite a lot about how culturally Australians tend to prefer to connect over email, right? There's probably a bit of a hierarchy where email is like very, very good. LinkedIn is probably next, and then there's, you know, the other kinds of social media. So how do you connect with someone over email? First of all, you need to find their email address, which, thanks to the world of the internet, shouldn't be too complex. And then you need to craft a great introductory email. And it should be pretty short and succinct and to the point. We already talked about how it's good if you can to send it from like your university email address or a kind of your work email address maybe, and send it to their professional email address as well. So, and the structure is pretty simple. So obviously greeting, and then you want to very briefly introduce yourself. So, hi, I'm Amanda. I am the Partnerships and Linkages Advisor for Australia Awards Indonesia, or I'm a PhD student at whatever, and I'm studying this. You want to say how you found them and why you're reaching out, right? Because it's still an introduction. So it might be, for instance, I've seen your work in a publication, in a journal, or I saw your conference paper that you presented at such and such conference, or you can be really direct and say, I saw your profile on LinkedIn and it looked great. I think we've got a lot in common. And then give them an incentive, right? So this doesn't have to be in this order, so I'll talk about these next two at the same time. But networking is about give and it's about take, right? And you'll be more successful if you can incentivize the other person, like give them a reason to want to connect with you and to spend their time and their energy on getting to know you, right? So you want to say what you're asking for, basically, and that's probably going to be something like, I'd like to arrange a time to talk to you, or something like that. And that should be specific and small, right? It shouldn't take much of their effort. You want to build up to asking for the big stuff. Yeah, so say what you're asking, be specific, make it reasonable, an hour of your time to chat about coffee, to chat about, you know, your research or whatever, and give them an incentive. So a little hook, a carrot. So I know quite a lot about this topic in the Indonesian context, and I've seen that you're interested in that. So maybe we could compare stories or something like that. Make it easy for them, right? So offer to go to them. If they live in a different city, again, like technology is so great. You can connect over Zoom, and you can do that through your house or whatever. No one has to go anywhere. Make it at a time that's convenient for them. Be as flexible as you can, all of that sort of stuff. It's pretty simple. And then finally, sign off, right? Not forgetting to provide them with your contact details. So they'll already have your email, of course, but you can give them your phone number as well. So that's the basic structure. You want to keep it pretty short. I showed you some examples before of ones that I've sent that kind of seem to work. So now, yes, now we'll move on to, have you all drafted, I think we asked you to draft yeah, okay. We might spend have you got them handy? Have you got them with you, your drafts of an introductory email? Yeah? Maybe let's spend just 5 or 10 minutes with the person next to you or in a group of 3. Read through each other's introductory email and provide some feedback. Okay, so if you haven't had an opportunity to finish drafting that, that's totally fine. But hopefully we've sort of started you off, and you know where you need to go with that email exercise. And it connects with the research exercise that's in the PDNP, yeah? So there's an exercise that asks you to work through that research process and to identify individuals and organisations in Australia that you might want to connect with, and then you develop a networking plan, and it asks you to think about what's in this for me, what do I want from a relationship with this person, and what can I offer to them, right? It's that give and take thing. And this is an exercise that you can do even before you go to Australia. You can begin to connect with people and try to set up meetings and so on for once you arrive. Obviously, you don't want to overload yourself too much and have 20 meetings in the first month, but you can think about who might I want to connect with, and if there are people that are really important, you can reach out before you go, and tell them that you're coming to Australia and you'd like to connect. Okay, so that's email. As I said, LinkedIn is so important, and if you're not on LinkedIn, you should be. I find it really confusing because it's not just, I think some people think that LinkedIn is just like a tool that you use if you're looking for a job. It's so much more than that. It's useful for connecting with people. It's useful for people to, you want to be on their radar, right? And so they can find out about who you are from LinkedIn. So yeah, as I mentioned, LinkedIn is like a tool for your personal brand, and you want to use it to present a great image of yourself, one that people will find interesting, one that they can relate to, and one that's going to make them want to reach out and say hi, right? Like, why should you be the one that goes to all of the effort to find networks? You want people to come and find you too. So having a great LinkedIn profile is one way that you can do that. And we have an exercise coming up that I think Makvina is going to lead. The next slide also includes a checklist of what a great LinkedIn profile looks like. So I'll hand over to Veena, and she'll go through that.
So I want everyone to please pay attention first on the screen here. So we've got a few checklists for you to ensure that you created an effective LinkedIn profile, a good one. So the first one is that you include details of your employment and education, as well as your job titles or a brief description about what you're doing, your key responsibilities, for example. That is one of the checklists. The second one, whether it includes a personal statement that tells people clearly about who you are and what you care about, so a short description about you. And then a clear and recent professional-looking profile photo. And whether you have good connections, whether you are connected to relevant people or affiliations on LinkedIn to see that you have connections or share similar interests with someone that you want to connect with. And whether you are joining relevant groups. For example, once you become an alumni, once you return, you will be invited to this LinkedIn forum, and it's a great platform to connect you with the other alumni of Australian alumni. So whether you're connected or whether you have joined relevant groups, and then whether you have posted contents that are related to your work, so show what you do and who you are. So those are the checklists. We hope that you spend 5 minutes to check on your friends, someone next to you, check their profiles, and then spend another 5 minutes to give feedback to each other based on this checklist. Okay, so interesting discussions with some of you. I think I've got an interesting question from Mas Haria back there. Whether it's okay to connect to someone that you haven't met before in
Yes,
LinkedIn, because
yes.
he's afraid that sending an invitation or connection request perhaps is too personal, or it needs to be verified by meeting in advance of that. But yeah, you certainly can send a connection request even if before you met that person. And I think someone in the ebook, there's a point where you can adjust your message when you send the connection request or connection invitation, and that will help the person that you want to connect with to understand more about you and then why you want to connect with them. So give them reasons, just like what Amanda shared about sending an email. Give them incentive, or share the message about why you want to connect with them.
There was another great question that we just had over here about the email as well. What happens if you don't get a response, right? How long do you wait before you follow up or you send the email again? I think give them a week or 2 weeks to respond, and if you don't hear from them, then you can send a follow-up. And I like to follow up by reply all to the email that I sent them initially, right? So they can see that I tried to contact them. And that way you don't have to repeat everything. You can just say, oh, hi, I'm just following up on the email that I sent a couple of weeks ago. You might have missed it, or maybe you've been busy, but I'd love to, connect, blah, blah, blah. And then if they don't respond to that, if you've sent them 2 emails and you don't hear anything, maybe you need to let that one go. If it's really, really, really important, maybe send a 3rd follow-up, but yeah, usually 2 is enough. It's a sign that maybe they're just too busy or don't want to connect.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. I think some of the scholars here, they've got all the checklist being checked. So they've got great photo. They've provided details of employment or education. But I think most might not have posted a lot of contents in their LinkedIn. So the last one might be the most challenging in terms of being checked. So posting content, highlighting your achievements, and so on. Perhaps someone would like to share. I need 2 volunteers, one person to share about interesting information or key takeaways that you learned from your friend's LinkedIn profile, and another one to share what you learned. I mean, what insights that you received from your friends to update your LinkedIn profile better. Any volunteer? Siapa yang mau share? Apa yang dipelajari dari LinkedIn profile temannya? Apa sih yang menarik?
My favorite fear. And he actually are so professional in LinkedIn. I do apologize. And I learned many things from him about how to make, why you so making a gap like this? And I learned many things, like he has bring a great insight about the functions of LinkedIn. This is my first time. Last night, I made my first account. So just only take a picture, and I think connections up to date, and not highlighting my achievement. And the most interesting is the benefit from the LinkedIn. He told me that he easy to get a job, or yes, he can promote what he was doing, something like a research. He also can connect with the other academia or other scholars abroad. So it's quite interesting. And thank you, Haris. He has helped me to learn about the interesting icon, the interesting application in the LinkedIn. Like, you can connect with someone that you are really adore with, him or her. So thank you, Haris. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for Amanda for this my new experience. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, and congratulations, Pak Haris. I think you've done a great job in using LinkedIn. So effective use of LinkedIn. Congratulations.
Maybe someone at the back.
Yes, someone at the back, perhaps sharing about what you learned from your friends and that you can use to update or better your LinkedIn profile. Anyone wants to share?
Um, all right, actually, I'm not really using LinkedIn as my social media account. I've just started to make account about just 1 month ago, and then yeah, it really useful. People use it as say media for reaching out for people, especially in finding jobs and something like that. I'm still learning from my peers, like my guy over here. He's really showcase himself through the LinkedIn profile and some others as well. I also um, follow your suggest about adding the Australia Awards award.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of leveling up my point at some level, and yeah, and I noticed that Australia alumni has a great LinkedIn account, and we can share a lot of information through this. Yeah, maybe I will somehow make an adjustment and kind of make it better in the future for using LinkedIn as my social media account, apart from Facebook and what the other one?
Instagram.
Instagram.
Thank you.
Thank you
Pak.
for sharing and on the spot.
Yeah, and Pak Miracle, you're alumni too, so you should be connected with the Australia Indonesia LinkedIn forum.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm breaking the rules here by encouraging you to do this, but I think it's worthwhile joining the alumni forum not Facebook, LinkedIn group now, because then you can tap into those people, right? You can ask the group a question and whatever. Even though you're not yet alumni, you're on the way to being one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I hope that's
a good point, Amanda.
Okay, so as well as LinkedIn being a tool for connecting with other people, and a tool for your personal brand, it's a tool for connecting with other people. So we've already just started talking about this. So the first, you can connect with each other, right? You can connect with us, you can connect with Pak Victor, you can connect with the uni representatives that you met at the info day. Everyone that you meet, every meeting that you go to, it's an opportunity to add people to LinkedIn. This is like 15 or 20 years ago, in a professional context, you used to meet people at networking events and they would give you their business card, right? And you would end up with a big stack of business cards on your desk. At least that's the way it was for me in Australia. And now LinkedIn is like your big stack of business cards, except you never lose them and you always can, it's searchable, it's great. So every time you go to a networking event, it's great practice. If you don't get their email address, to search their name, add them on LinkedIn. And yes, as we said, join the Australian Global Alumni in Indonesia group, because it's a great opportunity to connect with alumni who might be valuable connections, might be useful sources of information, all of that stuff. 3,800 people in that group that you can potentially connect with. Okay, when you, and this taps into the question that we just had before, when you reach out to somebody, it's perfectly acceptable to, in fact, more acceptable than any other platform probably, to send a connection request on LinkedIn to somebody that you've never met before. And it's a platform that exists specifically for growing your network. So it's totally fine. But I encourage you, when you do it, you can just like send a friend request, like the same way that you would do on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, like a follow request. But it also gives you the option to add a note, right? And this is where you can include your mini version of that email, right? I stumbled across your profile and I see that you work in this field. I also work in this field. I would love to connect, you know, whatever. So give them a little message, make it personalized, make them understand why you want to connect with them. and again, what might be in it for them. LinkedIn is also a great tool for maintaining relationships. And I think this came up a little bit, other social media as well, came up a little bit in the alumni discussion panel, right? Super easy way to stay in touch with people. Sunday, I'm having lunch with one of my old teachers from high school who I haven't seen for 25 years because she saw on social media that I was in Indonesia and she reached out with a message and said, "Hi, I'm going to be in Bali." And I was like, "Oh, I'm actually going to be in Bali that weekend too. Let's catch up." So that's someone in my network that I haven't had contact with for a long time. Through the power of social media, we've kind of reconnecting. And there are a bunch of ways that you can do it. And you know all of these things. It's basically the same on LinkedIn as it is on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and so on. And you know, Indonesia is one of the most social media connected countries in the world. So, you know, I feel like I don't need to tell you any of this stuff. But LinkedIn, post, tag, hashtag, right? Like, post about your achievements, post about what's happening. I'm going to go home tonight or on the weekend sometime and post something about, you know, how great it was to have the opportunity to talk to you guys today. And I'm going to tag Vina and I'm going to hashtag Australia Awards Indonesia and so on. I want people to know that I think it's been a really good day. Another easy way to maintain relationships that's not just sharing what you've been up to with your colleagues and connections, but is to like and react. Somebody mentioned this before, you know, like engage with people's content. Comment on people's content. This is one of the easiest ways. Share their content. And then use the direct message function, right? It's the same as Instagram and Facebook in that sense. You can connect with people in lots of ways. And because it's a professional platform, it's like people are very receptive to receiving messages from people outside of their network. So I want to very quickly do another short discussion. So I was on LinkedIn the other day and this post came up right at the top of my feed. This is by Ellie Williams. She is a friend of Australia Awards Indonesia and lived in Jogja for like 4 or 5 years and is very passionate about the Australia-Indonesia relationship. She's currently a PhD candidate at ANU and she's doing research about the Australia-Indonesia relationship. She is a super networker. She's got amazing relationships. She manages her relationships very well. And because of that, in part, also because she's terrific, she's very busy. She's part of the Australia-Indonesia Council, I think, and a bunch of things. And this is, I think, an example of a really good LinkedIn post. So, based on that little checklist that I showed you on the previous slide, what's good about it?
If you want to brag, be direct, you know.
Yeah.
I did this one, blah, 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 and go ahead. Don't, like,
Yeah.
you know, like, don't do, I'm sorry, don't do the thing like, it's been, I don't know, by his grace, blah, 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 and blah, blah. Just be direct with it.
Be
and,
direct, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, okay.
She used different kind of hashtag.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
she mentioned several names, which yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, sorry, you might not be able to read it at the back, right? But the post says AUID, Australia, Indonesia. I'm not even sure how she's done that in a slightly different font, but anyway, I have to find out. An absolute privilege to speak with. This here is another former Australian foreign minister. Australia's former foreign minister at the Australian National University. Chancellor the Honourable Julie Bishop, about the impact of the new Colombo Plan on Australia-Indonesia relationship building as part of my PhD research today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and reflections about the program with me and for giving up your time in a very busy day. Julie Bishop, greatly appreciated. Prayer hands. Thank you, hands. And then she's tagged ANU, the College of Asia Pacific, the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, the Australian Consortium for In-Country Indonesia Studies, the Indonesia-Australia Youth Association, International Education Association of Australia, Australian International Education Conference, the Lowy Institute, Melbourne Asia Review, and AsiaLink. So in there, she's captured basically every single person in Australia and Indonesia that's interested in the Australia-Indonesia relationship. So she's going to get like great coverage. And then she's got some hashtags as well. New Colombo Plan, Study Abroad, International Education, PhD Research, Australia-Indonesia, Public Diplomacy, People to People, and Achievers. Okay, what about this? This is what caught my attention first. It's a cool photo. It's, you know, happy, smiling, it's not complicated. It's with someone very recognizable. Yeah. Okay. She's got, you can see down the bottom here, she's got 164 likes, 11 comments, and this was all within 7 hours of her posting it. And then this is the comment section. And there's stuff about this that's great as well. So people are engaging and saying, you know, 2 amazing women in your own right. Yay, well done. What else is great about the way Ellie has dealt with the comments? Yeah, she's engaging with them, right? So she's liked both of the comments, she's replied, and this is a slightly more subtle one that I only realized last night when I was looking at it. She's kind of mirroring their language as well, right? So this first comment has used a little emoji, and then in her reply, she also used an emoji, right? And then, yeah, this is interesting. So Helen Brown is also someone that's really interested in the Australia-Indonesia relationship. She was a journalist correspondent in Indonesia for a long time, and now she works with Asia Education Foundation, I think. And so, but Ellie has said, thanks, Ibu, even though she's Australian, right? It's interesting, yeah. Okay, so what's great about it? She's got a great photo. Something else, right? So here, this is something that happens a lot in Australia, only in the last maybe 4 or 5 years. People are using these pronoun indicators in their email signature, in LinkedIn and so on. And this, it's about, you know, gender identity and so on. But for you guys, it's also useful, right? So some of you might have names that some Australians are not familiar with. So if you put a she, her, or he, him, or whatever it might be at the end of your email signature, they'll know how to address you, which is useful. She's used gratitude, right? It's almost humble bragging, right? But the purpose of her post was to say, thank you for giving up your time, right? And it gives Julie Bishop recognition because she's done something great that helps. It's, you know, and it's showing her gratitude, right? It's always good to give compliments and to give gratitude. She shared a cool achievement. She's tagged people, she's tagged institutions, she's used hashtags, she's liked comments, and she's replied to them. It's a really good example, I think. Okay, other social media. We talked a little bit before about engaging with people on a professional level through other social media. It's a little bit more murky, right? Like LinkedIn is a very clearly a professional networking site. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter actually is the same. I don't use Twitter very much, but lots of Australians do. Twitter is also quite professional, like more than Instagram or TikTok or whatever. But some people do use Instagram for to share professional achievements and so on. So you can still, and Facebook, you can connect with them on those platforms for sure. But just be careful about how they, you know, I guess get a sense of how they're using it. If they're posting a lot of content about their family and you don't know them very well, maybe they prefer to use it as as a personal thing and whatever. So yeah, it kind of blurs the lines. This image is an interesting one. So personal, professional, private and public. And social media really blurs the lines between those things. So yeah, different attitudes exist within the Australian population about who to connect with on more personal platforms like Facebook or Instagram. My experience here in Indonesia is that lots of people who when I first meet them, they're like, oh, can we be friends on Facebook? And for me, I have my Facebook settings on private, even though my Instagram is public. And it's just pretty much the same content. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, for me, Facebook, and even, yeah, Facebook is about my friends who I'm close with. Whereas some people will just accept friend requests from anybody. So yeah, but Facebook Messenger is also good. Very individualized, so just kind of try to get a sense of how they're using it. And the worst thing that can happen is that they just don't accept your friend request. So.
Okay, so thank you, Amanda. We're going to do another exercise. So if you remember, you did the first exercise with Amanda to identify your approach in building relationship with someone that you haven't met in Indonesia. So now we're going to do the same activity. We're going to spend some time to think about what would be our approach if we want to do the same thing, but in Australia. So consider all the cultural aspects, cultural context that we've learned earlier. Think about what your approach will be in Australia when you're going to do networking. So spend a couple of minutes, and I'll invite some of you to share what your approach will be. Okay, I think we've got 2 volunteers already who will share their step-by-step approach in connecting to someone that they haven't met in Australia to seek to just be connected or ask for help. So, Mbak Nikki and Pak Valen, would you like to share your approach or maybe?
Thank you. Mungkin dalam bahasa Indonesia aja ya, Kak. Jadi kalau dari yang saya pelajari tadi, langkah-langkahnya untuk approach seseorang gitu ya, atau mungkin dosen kita atau orang yang perlu untuk kita approach, yaitu yang pertama adalah look at his or her profile. Bisa di mana aja, bisa di Instagram atau di LinkedIn atau mungkin melalui jurnal ilmiahnya atau yang lain-lain. Kita harus cari tahu dulu tentang dia, look at his profile. And the second step is read more about his or her interest. Kalau memang sejalan sama apa yang mau kita lakukan, research atau project, kita bisa baru kita bisa tentukan apakah kita perlu untuk make a connection with him or her ya. Yang ketiga, selanjutnya getting connected in LinkedIn atau sosial media lainnya. Lebih disarankan LinkedIn mungkin ya, lebih profesional. Yang keempat, selanjutnya send a personal message through LinkedIn atau email yang ada di akun LinkedIn-nya. Itu kan berarti email yang memang dia khususkan untuk getting connected with other people. Kemudian selanjutnya introduce myself. Maksudnya kita perkenalkan diri kita dulu, dari mana, kemudian mungkin sebagai pelajar atau mungkin kita sudah kembali bekerja sebagai apa. Kemudian tell him or her about how I find him. Maksudnya kita tahu dia dari mana, mungkin kita pernah mengikuti sesi diskusi atau apa, kita bisa ketemu sama sosoknya. Kemudian selanjutnya tell about my current research atau project yang mau kita diskusikan. itu mungkin selaras atau dengan interest yang sama dengan beliau, kita utarakan, kita kasih tahu, kemudian baru kita boleh sampaikan apa tujuan kita untuk connected dengan dia, tell our purpose yang jelas ya. Seperti yang tadi sudah dipresentasikan, harus be spesifik tujuannya apa, kemudian mungkin jangan terlalu banyak menuntut ya, jangan terlalu banyak tanya, harus jelas juga. Kemudian sampaikan terima kasih juga mungkin ya, sebelum mungkin belum dikasih jawaban tapi sebaiknya ucapkan terima kasih juga, ucapkan terima kasih, kemudian kita kasih apa yang di bawah itu apa tadi namanya ya, kontak itu ya,
details, ya.
Iya, kasih sign kita di bawah situ, bagaimana dia bisa reach kita, mungkin dari LinkedIn kita bisa beralih ke email atau beralih ke surat mungkin atau yang lainnya, kita bisa masukin sign kita di situ. Mungkin sekian.
Thank you, Pak. I think that's a good approach. So you started with really good research. So research through his profiles, the journal, their profiles or their journals, the journals that they have written, and then started contacting them in a platform that is not personal. So you're not interfering to their personal boundaries. And then you stated in your message, you stated the reasons why you contacted them clearly, and also you provided incentives why they should respond back to you. So that's good. I think you've really learned well from Amanda's session. So well done on that. And then close that with a good a thank you note, and then provide your contact details so that they can find you and contact you back. That's good. Thank you. Well done. Okay. Mbak Niki, silakan.
I think my answer is quite the same with Mr. Valdrin. Okay. So at first it's the same. So we have to know better about his or her background. So we might have to find deeper about that person online. So we search about his or her name, dig deeper or about what have he done, and how relevant his or her profile to our need. And then after that, if we found out that their profile related to our needs, then we try to search their contact and preferably using email, because I think email is the most professional way to contact someone. And creating a formal email, a draft of formal email, like Amanda has said, first you have to introduce yourself and stated why you reached them out, and then what's in it for them, and then state your purpose and make it easy for them, and using sign off and provide our contacts in the email. And if we didn't receive their reply in several days or in a week, probably we have to create a follow-up email. And then maybe if they didn't respond as well, so we probably have to try to contact them via LinkedIn or maybe text them. And if we didn't get any response, maybe we can try to search somebody who close to them professionally and try ask why is it possible to contact him or her using through that person. And then if not, probably we have to search other people as our respondents or research professors.
Backup plan.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Can I just make a comment on that? That's a great point, and something that I probably didn't highlight enough when I was going through the presentation. If there is somebody that you know that knows the person that you want to meet, always better to try and have a mutual contact introduce you, right? So sending a cold email, like a cold contact out of the blue, is the second best option, really. If you know somebody that can introduce you to them, 100 times better. They're more likely to respond positively. Sorry.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Maniki. Well done. Okay, I think that's the end of the exercise. Now we're going to do some.
It's just one little.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
the last question. Maybe someone would like to answer that. What are the main differences between your response and exercise one? Exercise one was when you did the same exact exercise, but for Indonesian context. You exercise four is exactly the same exercise, but for Australian context. What are the main differences? Maybe, yeah.
From the exercise one, I thought that in Indonesian context, WhatsApp groups would be the most effective way. But then I knew it also from the presentations that email approach and maybe LinkedIn account was one of the best options for contacting Australians. Thank you.
The principle is the same, right? For WhatsApp groups, you should try that. Like it's the introduction referral thing.
Referral.
But you're just not necessarily going to get that referral from a WhatsApp group,
Yes.
but maybe from your LinkedIn profile,
Maybe,
right?
yeah.
So you can reach out to people that you're connected with on LinkedIn and say, hey, does anyone know somebody that works here, or I'm keen to get in, whatever. Yeah.
I've had the experience when I meet this professor, and he gave me like 2 email contacts, which is one is from the university email, and the other is the personal email. So, like
For your supervisor, or
no, just
someone that he said you
yeah,
should contact, but the same person
that I met in a conference.
Yeah.
So, do you think
Start with their
like,
university email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still, but
Yeah.
then it implies that he is like very casual
Yeah.
about me also emailing from the other
Yeah.
email.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And if it's if the person themselves gave you their personal email address, like if it's somebody that you meet at a conference and they say, here's my work email, here's my personal email, it's fine to email them at their personal email. That's totally fine. It's up to you. You can choose. But if you find somebody's personal email online and their work email, it's always better to use the work email. Yeah.
Okay.
If it's a work-related thing, right? Like you might be networking over something like a shared interest in scuba diving or something, and then it's okay to use social media.
I have a question. So suppose that you want to make appointment with your professor that you have never been in contact before. You email him or her.
Yeah.
But you haven't received any response yet.
Uh-huh.
So how long what it takes for you to do a follow-up email or reminder email?
That's a good question. I think particularly if it's your like a supervisor that you know you're going to have a relationship with, like a week, give them a week and then follow up. If it's someone that you don't have an implied relationship with, maybe give them 2 weeks, so 1 week or 2 weeks. But if it's like somebody that you've already has an obligation to you, then yeah, follow up in a week and just say, hi, some Australian academics sometimes slip behind with their emails. So he or she might have just missed it or whatever. So give it a week. If you don't hear back from them within a week, just follow up again. Yeah. And that's one where you want to keep following up. You don't ignore it if they don't respond. Good question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. As we know that networking, the aims of the networking is to make a mutual relationship, right? As you know that, what else can we offer to our partner beside collaborative working or publication?
Yeah.
As you know that sometimes for PhD student, we are likely to communicate or networking with people that have the same background with us. Especially when we make a connection with a professor, I guess that we must have a good offer for him or her, so they want to invest their time for us.
Yeah.
It is the first question. And the second question is, in your opinion, what should we prioritize, especially for PhD students? Is it only because on the handbook there are several type of networking. Like now, which one that we should prioritize? Is it only about working, or about I forget, school, university, community, or something like that? Thank you.
Great questions. Okay, the first one, what can you offer, right? The good news is that particularly in the context of if you're trying to contact an academic, most academics are very happy to help PhD researchers or master's students or any student really. That's A, it's part of their job, and B, they're usually interested. So I think for them, particularly if they work in a similar field to you, right, they're going to be interested to hear about your research. There might be a collaborative or a comparative aspect of it. So, I'm not sure what sector you work in or what you're going to study, but if you're connecting with people that have parallel knowledge in the Australian context, they're probably going to be interested in hearing about how things are done in Indonesia, right? So that's something that you can really offer. And more broadly, in the Australian context, I have to be really honest and say that most Australians don't know very much about Indonesia, right? They're interested, but they just don't know. And particularly if you're in a business sector or something, your insights into Indonesian culture, Indonesian language, all of that stuff can be really valuable, right? So if you're trying to connect with somebody that wants to build some kind of relationship in Indonesia, you can kind of provide them with some guidance, some help. And the same situation with, I'm really encouraging you to try to build connections with Australians, not just professionally, but interpersonally as well. And then we talked about Indonesian language students, and we talked about Ayah and students who have come to Indonesia on exchange, people who have worked in Indonesia, people who have volunteered in Indonesia, all of that stuff. You can offer language exchange, you can offer, often you can offer food, you can offer all sorts of things, and friendship, and just particularly that group of people are just really interested in having more Indonesian friends, right? And maintaining contact with Indonesian culture. So yeah, and there's not always going to be something major that you can offer, right? At the end of the day, you're sometimes going to be asking for them for a favor. But if there is something you can see that's going to be a potential benefit for them, make sure that you highlight it so that, they can see. And then the other side of that is minimizing the effort that they have to put into it. And then your second question? Sorry, I forgot already.
What type of networking that we should prioritize as PhD student?
Okay, so it really, you're right. There's so many demands on your time and your energy and your efforts, and it really depends on what your goals are, right? Obviously, your relationship with your supervisor as a PhD student is going to be super important. And the other relationships that I would prioritize at that stage are if you're, people that can help you with your research, people that can provide you with insights, but then also depending on what field you work in, if you're an academic, it might be people that you could potentially collaborate with on a research paper, or if you work in government, maybe it's your counterparts at the Australian government, or so on. Yeah, but that's a really individual kind of judgment that you have to make based on the amount of time that you feel like you've got, the amount of energy. And it's important, I think, to find a balance between the kind of network and relationship building that is going to be useful to you professionally, and also the kind of network and relationship building that's going to give you energy and fill you up and give you friends and people with mutual interests and all of that sort of stuff. So it's not, have a balance, because it's important to be happy, right? And that's, yeah, we've got to focus on that stuff as well. Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to ask a question. If we want to contact our lecturer or someone we haven't ever met before for the first attempt, should we address with Mr. or Miss? Because it's in Indonesian courtesy, we usually
Yes.
say. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, good question. So the first time, yes. If it's a lecturer and they have a PhD or whatever, if they have a PhD, doctor or professor or whatever their job title is, they're a lecturer, it's doctor. But if they're like an associate professor or a professor, but when they reply to you, I don't know if this is working. When they reply to you, they will probably just sign off with their first name, usually. And so in that case, it's okay to send your next email, say that their name is, say it's me. You can just address your next email, your reply to Dear Amanda or Hi Amanda or whatever. So take your cue from however they sign off. Yeah.
For the first time, we should address.
For the first time, use their title. Yeah. Yeah. And then also the same thing applies if it's like outside of the academic context as well. But not quite so much. So you can say Dear Mr. Smith or Dear Ms. Smith or whatever, but it's also usually pretty okay to say Dear Amanda. That's also okay. It's less of an important thing. Yeah. Good question.
Sorry, I want to shift the conversation to, more of a in-person networking event, sort of like conference and things like that.
Yeah.
So I talked to you about, sometimes in networking events, people can be very insufferable, and they can be like, as though they're trying to rub their CV on your face. So yeah, because I've met several people like that before, and so many times, and I'm tired of this kind of people. And yeah, so my question, I have two questions. This is the first question. So how do you deal with those kind of people? Of course, you mentioned that in Australia, they have this kind of like tall poppy syndrome. But of course, if it's an international conference, you will meet, a diverse kind of people.
Yeah.
So that's my first question. And the second question is, it just came across my mind that I remember in my oasis for my supporting statement for this scholarship, and I also contacted one community. It's a voluntary group called Inspire in Lilydale, Victoria, and basically this community, they want to provide healthcare for indigenous communities.
Yeah, great.
So my question, I don't know if it's right. I don't know if you're of Aboriginal descent or not, but I think that somewhat, a thing or two about how to, if there is any code of conduct, or how to network with them.
How to talk to and about Indigenous Australians.
Yeah,
okay.
in a sense that, because there are a lot of things happening with them, and the mistreatment and all of those things. So how to be more, more, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
what's the
more appropriate.
Yeah, more appropriate.
Okay, good questions. So the next session, we're going to talk about face-to-face networking more, but I'll very quickly touch on your question about how to deal with people that you don't particularly like, or that you think are, rubbing their achievements in your face. So there are people like that in Australia too, and in some fields they're more common than others, right? And I think also younger people tend to be more like that, I think, because they've got a lot to prove, right? Yeah. They want to demonstrate how great they are. Yeah. So my advice for dealing with that is, and kind of what I said to you before was like, you don't have to deal with those people if you're in a conversation in a networking context and you're not enjoying the company of the person that you're talking to. just politely extract yourself, right? Don't worry so much about it. But also don't feel like you have to compare yourself with them, or, you know, it's not a competition, and it's maybe just a reflection of where they're at in their headspace, that they feel that they need to like make sure you know how great they are, right? So, you know, give them a chance, have a brief conversation, try to find some common ground. Someone used that phrase before, it's great. Try to find some common ground. But if you're not enjoying it, say, it was really nice to meet you, and then move on. Yeah. Because there are, you know, plenty of people in the world who aren't like that. And then there's one more question at the back. I'm not sure how we're going for time. Do we need to wrap up? The Indigenous question is an interesting one. I'm not Indigenous. But really, I mean, in terms of approaching them and having conversations with them, it's more or less the same as how to be more culturally sensitive in what context? What are you trying to say to them?
I don't know. We'll just have a private conversation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and we'll try to. You'll get more insights into that in your on award period and so on. Like, we're trying to bring more Indigenous awareness into the program. One more question at the back, and we can chat live after. Oh, you have a mic already. Great.
Yeah. All right. I want to ask a bit specific question about networking.
Mhm.
So, as a civil servant, when we do a project, it's kind of like we wait for the order. The funding is already there. But what if I want to make a project and I need to build a connection to get a sponsor? What is the appropriate way to build the connection? Because it's about funding. It's kind of sensitive. What is the appropriate way to build those connections? Thank you.
Plan. Yeah. So reach out to them first.
Step by step.
Yeah. So start small. Start building a relationship. Get together, meet for coffee, have a conversation. You know, send them the email. Explain to them kind of what you're working on and so on. Try to find the benefit for them. Like, if you want funding, there's got to be a reason for them to give you money,
to
right?
have something that offer to them as well.
Yeah. There's got to be an angle for them that is going to make them go, oh, that's a project that I really care about, or that I want to get involved in, that I want to fund. So identifying that is important, and then making sure that they understand what that is. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's a good topic for us to do some more events on, I think, as we go through, and you know, alumni events as well, is how to get collaboration and how to win grant funding. And yeah, good question. Thank you. Okay, so that's our initial session on online networking. I hope you found it useful. The things that I really want you to remember: research is key, and Google is your friend, right? So preparation. Know who you're talking to, so you can be strategic about the way you approach networking. This relates back to the question that we were just talking about. Know your ask. Know what you want from somebody, and make sure initially it's small enough that they're going to want to help you, right? Don't go asking them for $10,000 straight up. Get to know each other. Ask for some of their time, just a little bit of their time, or you know, a little bit of their advice, and then grow from there as you build trust. Keep your introductory emails polite and short and to the point, right? So I'm a little bit guilty of this as academics are particularly guilty of writing heaps, right? And I'm sure we've all been in the situation where we receive an email from someone and it's like really, really long. And if it's someone that you don't know very well, you're like, do I really want to read this? If it's just a couple of paragraphs, they'll read it really quickly and be more likely to respond. LinkedIn and social media are a key part of your personal brand, so use them to your advantage, right? It's really, really important. And finally, social media is an easy and effective way to nurture your relationships between meetings and discussions. So this came up again in the alumni discussion panel. Super easy, like someone that you haven't been in contact with for a little while and you're friends on social media or LinkedIn, and they post something about something that they've done. Congratulations, well done, or I'd love to hear more about this, let's catch up for a coffee. Or, you know, it's their birthday, happy birthday. The internet reminds you about this stuff, it's great. And sharing content about your own life and your own achievements, whether it's personal or professional, on social media platforms in a way that you're comfortable with is a good way to provide an opportunity for other people to engage like that with you as well. And that's it. So we're going to have a break for how long? What time are we coming back? 20 minutes. We're going to have a 20-minute break and then we're going to come back for the final session on face-to-face networking for the day. So thank you. Sorry.
So, Bapak Ibu, we just sent an email to your either Google Gmail or your institution's email about the post-event survey. So grateful if you could please check that. And if you check that in your inbox or spam or junk mail. And if you haven't received that email in any of your emails, please let us know, or let my colleague Maria, the one in the corner, the lady with the lovely dress, berdiri, Maria can help you with that. So if you haven't seen that email yet in your inbox or spam, please contact Maria or myself. Yeah, you can give your response right after the session finishes, and we would love to hear your feedback.
So we're going to spend the first part of this session talking about it and trying to give you some hints and tips. And then finally, to wrap up the day, we're going to have a little practice session. And I know that's a little bit weird because lots of you already know each other, but it's a good opportunity to practice some of the strategies that we're going to talk about. Yeah, so the objectives are that you're going to learn some techniques, tools and strategies for face-to-face networking in the Australian context, many of which are transferable to the Indonesian context too, I'm sure. But as I said earlier, we know that it's the intercultural aspect that makes it even more complicated and maybe makes you feel a little bit malu, yeah? So how we can overcome that. And then we'll give you the opportunity to and build your confidence. Okay, so the first bit we're going to talk about is what the structure of a conversation at a networking event looks like. And when we're talking about networking events, I mean things like, well, conferences, lunch breaks, at events, you know, or specific, often industry associations or, you know, research groups. In Australia, we'll have like once a month or once every 6 months or something like that, an industry networking drinks or whatever, right? And it's like 2 hours. It might be at a restaurant or a cafe or a bar, or at some, you know, an office or something, and you can go and it's just time to chat with people that work in a similar area to you. So we'll chat about what that conversation, the structure of that conversation looks like. We'll do an exercise on introducing yourself, right? Your sales pitch. And then we'll talk about some tips and tricks. And then we'll put it all into practice. And then we'll wrap up and we can all go home and sleep and have a lovely weekend. Okay, so what is the structure of a networking conversation and how does it work? I think the point generally of a networking event is that you don't want to get stuck talking to the same person for the whole 2 hours, right? Like the idea is that you want to meet, you know, quite a few people and have the opportunity to, you know, yeah, build your network beyond just one person. And plus, the one person, they might be really, really interesting, but there might be other people in the room that are even more interesting. So part of the idea is to keep the conversations relatively short, like not very, very short, not just like 1 minute necessarily, but like 5 or 10 minutes, and then you move on and you have a chat with someone else. So preparation is, again, it's an emerging theme for today. Preparation is really key and can help you feel more confident and more comfortable and more happy. So you can have a plan. Say you're at a conference or you're at an event that the university is holding. Usually you'll be able to find out in advance who's going to be there, who the attendees are, and you can scan through that list and maybe you recognize some names, maybe you Googled some of the names that you see to find out who are the people of interest. Maybe there are particular speakers at that event that are talking on a topic that's of interest to you that you want to have a conversation with later. So preparation is, it's good to know who's going to be there and who you want to talk to, right? And you can be super prepared by reaching out to them in advance if you know that they're going to be there, and you can say, hey, I saw that you're going to be at this conference. I'd love to spend 5 minutes chatting with you at morning tea or lunchtime or whatever. Or you can also use, if they're not presenting and you don't know what they look like, you can also use the internet, LinkedIn, to find out what they look like so that when you're at the conference, you can keep an eye out for them and try to find them and then go up and introduce yourself, yeah? So preparation. The other part of preparation is introducing yourself. Who in this room enjoys talking about themselves? I don't either. I know I'm standing in front of you and I've told you lots of stories about myself. But normally, somehow in a face-to-face individual context, I don't really like talking about myself that much. And I don't know what to say. I'm worried that, whatever I'm saying might be boring the other person, or that I'm talking for too long, or too much detail, or not enough detail, or whatever. So it can be useful to kind of prepare an introduction, to find an interesting, short way to capture who you are and what you're about in a way that's interesting and engaging, and most importantly, that gives you confidence, right? You know what you're going to say. And there's some exercises that we're going to work through as a group about that, because I think that's really key. Okay, so preparation, and then you walk up and you introduce yourself. And we will, I think, chat shortly about how to do that. Then it's about relationship building. So you want to spend a bit of time kind of just getting to know each other. Feel like letting them get to know you a little bit, finding the things that you have in common. And that's where talking about the weather, you might start talking about the weather and you might end up talking about, I don't know, scuba diving or something, because they might say, or hiking, because they might say, oh, it's such a shame that the weather's so bad. I wanted to go out for a hike this weekend. And if you're interested in hiking, that's like, I'm going to connect with them on this point, right? Let's now have a conversation. Tell me, where are the great places to go hiking around here, or whatever? And then suddenly, you're becoming friends and you're building rapport. So you spend a little bit of time relationship building, and that can be about personal or professional. And then it's kind of getting down to business, right? So if this is somebody on your list, somebody that you wanted to connect with, you probably already know what it is that you want from them, what your ask is. And before too much time has passed, because you want to respect the fact that they might want to talk to other people as well, you want to put your ask out there, right? So you can say, hey, Vina, it's been so great chatting to you. I'm super interested in like all of the things that we've talked about, and I'd love to hear, you know, more from you about your recommendations for restaurants or whatever it is. Could we get together sometime and chat in more detail? And Vina's like, yeah, sure, great. And so then that creates the perfect opener for swapping details. Okay, cool, can I get your number and we can catch up and arrange a time to meet? Or can we swap email addresses or business cards or whatever it is? And then this is the part that's almost equally as hard as introducing yourself. Sometimes it can be hard to leave the conversation, right? So again, we can talk in a little bit about some tips and tricks for that. But if you're having a one-on-one conversation with somebody, a good way to leave the conversation after you've swapped details, I mean, swapping details is kind of a sign that you're going to move on to the next conversation anyway. Great to meet you. Can I have your details? I'd love to catch up with you more. So sometimes that's enough and then you can leave. But if there's somebody else that you recognize, you can turn your group of 2 into a group of 3, right? It's much easier to leave somebody talking to somebody else than it is to leave someone standing in the corner by themselves, like, who do I talk to now, right? Like, we've all been in that situation where it's a little bit awkward, and nobody likes to be by themselves too much. Okay. So leaving conversations can be a little bit of a challenge, but there are some tips and tricks for that we'll chat about. And then following up, right? So this is the most critical bit. There's no point in spending your time and energy and like building up your bravery to have a networking conversation if you don't follow up with them, right? So when you go home that night or the next day, do what you said you were going to do. Get in touch with them and arrange a time to catch up, or connect with them, always connect with them on LinkedIn. Send them a quick email saying, hey, it was great to meet you at the conference, or it was great to meet you, at whatever it was. Great to meet you picking the kids up from school. Great to meet you at the yoga club or whatever. Okay. So, yeah, we'll talk about some tips and tricks a bit more, but for now, we've got an exercise. So some of you may have already started working through this because you've seen it in the PDMP document, but we want to, if you haven't already, write the first draft of your little elevator pitch, right? Your introduction, how you're going to introduce yourself. So it needs to be like quite short, 30 seconds to 60 seconds is actually quite a long time to talk, but there might be times where you want it to be that long. And you want to say who you are and what you do, but more importantly, the thing that's going to capture people's imagination, right, is why you do it and what you want to achieve. Make it kind of like interesting and engaging. So if you think back to the very first session, when I introduced myself, I told you, hi, my name's Amanda, and I am passionate about building connections between Australia and Indonesia, right? That's what I really care about. And that's more important than my job. I'm lucky that my job is connected to my passion and that I'm the Partnerships and Linkages Advisor for Australia Awards Indonesia. But the thing that I care about is the relationship building. And that's hopefully what captured your attention, yeah? So there's a great public speaker and writer called Simon Sinek. Some of you might have seen him on YouTube, but he, I think, wrote a book called Start With Why, right? And it's your story that's going to capture people's attention and make them want to learn more about you. And you can put some of the personal stuff into it too, right? So it doesn't just have to be strictly, this is my job and, I'm interested in microbiology because it can change the world or whatever it might be. But, you know, you can talk about your experience. And in the context of the networking in Australia, one of the easiest things that you will find to talk about with Australians is your identity. The fact that you're Indonesian and that you're living in Australia, people are always going to ask you, like, so how do you like living in Australia? What do you, you know, all of that stuff. So put some of that in there. So just a show of hands, have any of you already written a draft of this? No? Great, because we're going to do that now. Okay, I just wanted to check that we weren't doubling up. Yeah, and the final little tip is you want to be positive, you want to be persuasive, and you want to be engaging. Whoops. Yeah, so let's spend like 10 minutes. It's a hard exercise, right? Like harder than you would think. One of the hardest things I find is like if you go to a conference, writing the bio about yourself. So I think it's a good one. It takes some time and you might want to come back to it later and keep going. But when we have the practice networking session shortly, you'll be able to give it a try. Just take it for a test drive. I don't know if that's a saying that people in Indonesia use, but in Australia it's a common thing. Take it for a test drive, see how it works, see how it feels, and practice saying it. Okay, I won't force anyone to share. Okay, so tips and tricks for networking events. These are some things that I've found useful in my life as an introvert, trying to learn to love networking. And I hope you'll find them useful too. And I'm sure there's other pieces of advice that, you know, you've all probably already got some tips and tricks. So I'll ask for your suggestions too at the end. Okay, the biggest tip that I have in networking event is try to find something fun. Enjoy it, like relax. It's like, it's not serious. It's nothing, like what's the worst thing that can happen, right? So enjoy the food. Enjoy the conversation. Hopefully, you know, look for people that have similar interests, and it doesn't have to be all, you know, talk about professional work. Yeah, like I had a great conversation with one of the uni reps on Monday about diving and snorkeling, right? Like it was just something that he was interested in and I was interested in, and we had a great connection. And then we followed up after. I sent him some recommendations of places in Indonesia that it's good for diving and snorkeling, and you know, it was a nice conversation. So try to find the fun. Be approachable. This is one of the key things, right? So I don't know about you, but one of the things that I find a little bit daunting sometimes about networking events is, you know, when they say it's lunchtime and everyone goes out, and especially if it's like at a conference setting and I don't know anyone there, it's that, oh my God, who am I going to talk to? Is anyone going to want to talk to me? I've got my food, I've got my coffee or whatever. And you know, like, I know, I'm just going to check my phone. Right? And I'll sit there and you want to check your email so that you don't look like you're standing there waiting for somebody to come and talk to you. But if I'm standing here on my phone at a networking event, right? Dina, are you going to want to come and strike up a conversation with me? Yeah, I seem busy, right? I'm not open. So as awkward as it sounds, try to be approachable and open and not reach for your phone. Yeah, that's a big tip. Okay, how to start conversations with people. This is the other thing that's scary, right? Approaching somebody and starting a conversation. So I've given these cute names. These are some of the strategies that I like to use. So the first one is, I'm calling it the tag along. So if there's someone that you recognize, that you know, that's also at this event or place, and you see them talking to someone, you can walk past, you can catch their eye, and you can say, "Hi, Vina, how are you? Do you mind if I join your conversation?" And just introduce yourself, right, to whoever they're talking to. And suddenly you're having a conversation and it's fine. So that's the first one. Use your existing networks to tap other conversations. The second one is the wallflower, and this is one of my favorites, and I've used this with you guys actually. So look for people that are standing by themselves, because they're always going to want to chat, right? Unless they're sitting on their phone checking their emails or doing something really important. But if you see someone by themselves, just walk up to them and say, "Hi, how are you going? How's your conference?" Whatever. It's much easier than trying to break into an existing conversation, and everyone benefits. So that's the first strategy. The coffee lover is not just about coffee, but it's using opportunities that present themselves to you while you're waiting for a coffee, or lining up to get your food. Everyone in that situation is pretty much alone. For women especially, lining up to go to the toilet, right, is an opportunity to strike up a conversation really quickly with somebody. So you're standing right next to each other, you're waiting, just say hi. Introduce yourself, use your introduction. The admirer, I mentioned this one earlier, right? So you can pay someone a compliment, right? "Oh my God, I love your hijab. Like, it's a great color and the way you put your outfit together is fantastic." Or if it's someone that you saw presenting a conference paper or something, "I loved your presentation. I thought it was really interesting when you mentioned this." People love getting compliments, right? Always welcome. Just try not to be creepy. So that's starting conversations with people. Joining a group conversation can be also scary and can be hard to find a way to cut in. One easier way to do it is to find groups of 3, because then you can sort of strike up a conversation with one of them and it might become 2 groups of 2. If it's 4, if it's already 4, it can be a bit more of a challenge. So find odd numbers and And finally, the eavesdropper. That's where, you might, be standing in the line and other people are having a conversation around you and you just happen to overhear them talking about this or that. You can jump in and say something about whatever it is that they're talking about. So sport is an easy one, right? Like if people are already having a conversation about sport, although it's not easy for me because I'm not into it, it's like homework, right? Keeping up with who won the football that week. But if it's something that you're interested in, if it's the weather or the rain, or if it's like the presentation or something that's happening in politics or whatever, and you know something about it and you hear people talking, you can use that as an excuse to, "I'm really sorry, I couldn't help but overhear you were talking about this. Oh my goodness, I agree, whatever." Yeah? And then suddenly you're having a conversation. What to talk about? So we already talked about this a little bit in the quiz, and I think you all have a good idea of what's okay and what's not okay. But the easiest thing to get people talking is to ask them about themselves, right? So they've quickly introduced you or whatever. Listen for something in their introduction that you're interested in and ask them some questions about that. Super easy. And then the other thing is to talk about something that you're interested in and you're passionate about. And hopefully they'll want to ask questions. People can sense your energy, right? And get your excitement. And so if I'm talking about sport, people can tell that it's an effort and I'm not really interested. Whereas Food, on the other hand, I can talk about food all day and my face lights up and I smile and all that stuff. So, keep it light, keep it interesting, talk about something that you're interested in. What not to talk about, we talked about this a little bit already, like, avoid topics that might be a little bit sensitive. Yeah. But again, like, play it by ear and listen to the conversation, and you'll get a sense of what's okay and what's not. And most Australians, as the alumni panel said, are really open and tolerant and willing to talk about just about anything. Okay, leaving conversations, as I said, is the other hard thing. As I think I mentioned before, you can introduce them to somebody else, bring somebody else in, and then say, I'm going to leave you guys to it. Thanks so much. It was great to meet you. I'll follow up by email, like, I'll be in touch. There's someone that I want to catch, right? So after you've gone through the whole structure, you've spent some time getting to know each other, you've told them you'd love to catch up and chat about something or whatever it is, or you'd love to get their advice. You've got their email or you've connected, you know you can connect with them on LinkedIn. You can say, well, it's great talking to you. I'm really looking forward to talking with you further. I'll be in touch by email. There's just someone over here that I want to talk to. So excuse me, enjoy the rest of the conference, and off you go. I need to refill my coffee, or I need to go to the toilet, or sorry, there's an email that I really need to respond to very quickly. Great to meet you. I'll be in touch. Have you? Yeah, all of that stuff. So that is not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there's lots of knowledge and ideas in the room. So are there any things that you use that I haven't mentioned?
Thanks, Amanda. For the next activity, we're going to do, thank you. We're going to practice what we have been learning today. Thanks, Amanda, for sharing all your tips and tricks, all the tools and strategies. Okay, thank you. Bapak, teman-teman yang mau medical check-up, boleh kalau mau keluar dulu. Silakan. Good luck with your medical checkup. I'm going to ask my colleague, Selfie, to distribute the worksheet to everyone. And I'm going to explain this activity a bit with you, for you. So we call it the networking bingo. Has any of you ever done a bingo game? Yeah? You know what it is, right? So at the end, if you complete all the tasks in the worksheet, you should say bingo, and then we have prepared some goodies for you. So we'll select the first five who complete the task. So this is going to be hopefully a quite good game for everyone to participate in. If you have received the worksheet, you'll see that there are two parts of the activity. The first one, you will identify several things. You will be asked to respond to each of the boxes here with responses that are relevant to you. For example, intended university major, you should spend some time here to write down the answer that is relevant to you. For example, you want to go to Darwin University, so you write it down here, Darwin. And then the idea is for you to find someone who shared the same interests with you or who wants to go to the same university. That might be challenging.
But not somebody that you already know super well, okay? So don't just fill in like, I already know this person, this person, this person. Not someone in the same class as you at IALF, and not someone from the same organization as you.
Yeah, that's correct. So thank you, Amanda, for stressing out that point. And also we want you to find out who the people that whom you share the same interest with through conversation. So you have to go through all the introduction, practice your elevator pitch. Just imagine that you are in a conference and you met that person for the first time, and you have to do the introduction and then do that step-by-step conversation.
I can see people writing already. It's not a written exercise. It's about networking. So we're going to stand up and we're going to go outside and you're going to find this stuff out through conversation.
I'll give you some time to write down the answer to this, the first line.
Yeah.
The one indicated with me. So respond to each prompt by writing your answer on the me line in each box. So that's the first part. And then the second part, there are only 4 actually. You will need to write down 4 things that you want to find out to prepare for your study and that you want to do while in Australia. So that includes joining a club, finding out about university, for example, finding a place to live and getting work experience. So what you have to do right now is just write down the club's names, the uni's name, area or city where you want to live in, and also the type of work that you want to do while you're in Australia. And then when you have finished, then we'll do some networking activity and you'll need to find out someone who can help you get that information or someone who knows someone who can help you get that information. This one? This is the second part? Yeah. Yeah, for example, I want to join, I want to find out more information about Monash University, for example, because I'm going there. I want to find out more information about that. So I'll go around the room. I'll find someone who can help me get that information. So what you what you can do right now is to write down in this line the name of the uni that you want to find out more info about, or the clubs, the name of the club that you want to go to, join, or the type of work that you want to experience while in Australia. Okay, so 5 minutes to complete the first line of each part of the worksheet. And if you have been able to complete all the names of your someone that can help you, for example, in the second part, or someone who shared the same interest with you on the first part, then you say bingo. Yeah.
And we want you to practice your introductions as well. Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, another rule is that you cannot write down the same names more than once. So it should be different person for each part of the worksheet. Imagine that you're in a conference. Will you do that type of approach to someone that you haven't met? So I think it's interesting to see that some of you are too focused with the activity or winning this exercise. But that's great. It's great to see that you network with each other, and I'm sure that you have several key takeaways from doing this activity. And I'm going to invite the winners. We've got 5 bingos for 5 winners here. Let me just call their names, and I'm keen to hear how they what their strategies are in winning this game. So the first one, Mbak Mira, would you like to come in front? So I'd like to hear how you won this strategy. Maybe if you want to share your elevator pitch.
Okay. My name is Mira. I'm an educator, specifically in the early childhood education policy. My research is about that. I'm going to pursue my PhD degree in the University of Melbourne. So yeah, and the way that I can maybe have some common things, because maybe we have discussions at lunch. It's already 2 weeks, right? So I might know like some of us, I mean, having the same hometown or share the same city that we want to live in. So it's a good start to, to kind of approach the person and just we have the same things, and then and the rest I got from, there are actually new conversations that I got, like the same people from the same hometown with me that I've just met, so it's good, and people that I also intendedly approach someone that I've never have conversation with before. So it's good to know.
Oh, that's great. Just get to know more about the new conversation that you had just now. What are your strategies and what are the challenges when you want to bring in that topic that you want to ask them about? What was the challenge and or what was your strategy?
I mean, because I guess we have the same assignments, but a part of that, I'm quite direct to just approach people and say, hi, my name is, I think it's better to start the conversation first before someone, before waiting for someone else talking to me. So I guess be direct, I guess one of the strategy.
Okay, thank you, Mamira. You may pick your prize.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next one on my list is Mbak Caca. Congratulations, yeah, Mbak Caca, yeah. Maybe you can share a little bit about whether what is your approach in making the new conversation and how you got all those answers in a quite short period of time.
Okay, so my name is Chacha, and for my study, I picked the Monash University, and it's culture and creative industry. And what's fascinating about going around like that was that because we got a short period of time, and we were like trying to compete with one another, and we're like so direct and like just go like, hi, my name is this, do you have something in common with me, like that. So it's like maybe because we got the task, so it's like we're rushing and trying to get things done, but I'm not sure if it's in real like networking, like what Amanda said, we're gonna be like that direct, because it might become so uncomfortable for both of us, I think. Yeah. And then what's fascinating is too that I actually find someone who's in the same university and the same, like the things that we picked are exactly the same. So I used to think that I'm the only one who picked that. And then we were like so happy that I finally met someone who's gonna go to the same university and the same course. Yeah.
That's
That's
great.
it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing,
Thank
Mbak Caca.
you.
You may pick your prize.
An interesting thing as well about that, like, yes, it's a task, and in a networking situation, you're not necessarily going to have a shared activity but at the same time, in a networking event, you do have a shared activity. It's networking, right? So everybody wants to get to know each other a little bit. So I think like no one seemed nervous or apprehensive or shy during that exercise. So you can take some of that energy into your networking events. Everyone's got the same objective, to meet more people.
Thanks, Amanda. The next one, Ega. You may share about your strategies, but also when someone approach you, what strategies that you think they use and work really well. You may share that as well if you want to.
Actually, my strategy is quite similar with Mira and also Mbak Chacha. So I happen to know like maybe like some people like we have something in common. So I approach them directly because I know it will be like easier for me. And also for someone that I just having chat with, maybe just go directly, like asking, like, do we have something in common? And yeah, because like we have the same objective, so it's easier like to approach new people, like I think. So yeah, I think that's it, like the similar strategies.
Okay, thank you Mega. Boleh pilih hadiah yang dimilih. Kopi ya. Congratulations, Mega. I think all of our winners are ladies. We ladies are quite competitive, right?
It's a
Mbak
woman's
Alfie?
superpower.
Superpower. Mbak Alfie? Boleh share strategies? Did you use the direct approach or indirect?
Intronya, ya.
Oh yeah, intro,
Okay.
yeah. The pitch, yeah.
Okay, my name is Alfie Kusumawardani. You can call me Alfie as my first name. I am a lecturer from West Nusa Tenggara. I'm going to pursue my PhD in the Department of Institute of Molecular Bioscience with a major of chemistry in the University of Queensland. And the strategy that I have is similar with Mira and Ega as well. I knew some people directly who were going to go to university same with me, and I directly go to there. And the challenge are I have to wait for so many people in a crowded, and it's not that easy way to find people and ask them and also because of my major is very specific, it's really hard to find the one that have a similar major with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mbak Ega, for sharing. Oh, sorry, Mbak Alfie. Sorry, Mbak Ega sudah tadi ya. Pick your prize. So, yeah, I think that's a real life challenge to, like when you're in a conference, finding someone who is available to speak to. I think, to speak with. I think that's a real life challenge. Thanks, Mbak Ega. And the last one, siapa ya? Mbak Tia ya. I cannot read my own handwriting, sorry. Mbak Tia.
Hi, my name is Tia Asrorul Wahyi. So I'm a civil servant in West Lombok Regency. And what I'm feeling really interesting is that I know someone else that also pursuing his master degree in public policy, which is Mr. Faisal from Maluku. And my strategy is that what Amanda said, tag along strategy. So in the crowded place like this, so I just find someone who just have an eye contact with me and start saying that, hi, do you have the same thing in common with me? Or do you also read like a self-development book or something like that? So yeah, that's my strategy, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well done, everyone. I think congratulations, all the 5 winners, 5 strong ladies, very competitive ladies. I'm keen to hear from you who might have a different approach, who might use a more indirect approach, like building up the conversation. I'm sure that you might not get all of them completed in such short period of time, but is there anyone who might have a different approach than those that we have heard?
Hello, my name is Faisal Bahrun. I want to take public policy later on in Adelaide. Actually, it's not kind of different. It's not that different. It's that I ask people because I cannot go everywhere and then ask them by one. So ask them, do you know anyone who has this in their forum? And it works. 2 people. Mbak Susi said that, oh, there's someone over there that want to take this course. So I went there and then write their name, and then one also in the favorite book. It's very hard to look for your favorite book because most of people write Harry Potter, so like, well, and someone shout from like the back of the class, Faisal, there's someone who like Laskar Pelangi, you should meet them. So like, well, that's nice. So I don't have to go look for anyone who like this particular book. So that's one of the strategies, so I don't have to go everywhere.
That's actually great strategy that extends beyond this exercise, right? And into your networking in real life where you don't have a worksheet that everyone's working on. But yeah, sharing your goals or sharing, you know, what you want with other people and asking them, who should I talk to about this? Like, can you introduce me to someone? Brilliant. Well done.
Thank you, Mas Faisal, for sharing. Anyone else who would like to share?
Yeah, maybe the same with Mas Faisal. I haven't even met with these two people I wrote here.
That's almost cheating.
Yeah,
You didn't
no,
talk to them.
I talked to someone and I asked her what major you want to take in Australia, and then I explained the major I want to take, and she said that I didn't take that major, but I know someone who take the same major with you, and her name is blah blah blah, and I just wrote the name of it. I think in making a real networking, it's like the first step, and the next step that I need to contact the person later. Like, yeah.
That's a great point, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did anyone swap contact details with the people that you talked to? Are you now connected on, like, I don't know, whatever it might be appropriate, Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, or how many people did that? No one. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well done. Don't forget that step. Swap details and chat. But it was great to see lots of conversations happening. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Okay.
And that's a recap of the session.
Okay, excellent. So I might just, before we recap, I just want to provide an opportunity for more questions and answers. We're coming to the end of the day. I hope that, it was a, what's the word? Not quite an authentic networking experience, but it really got you talking. That was good. And yeah, hopefully provided you with a chance to practice a little bit some of your skills. And there will be more opportunities to come. So in a few weeks' time, I think we're going to have a networking event. It's an opportunity for you to meet with people from the Consulate General, the Australian Embassy maybe, and so on. So use that opportunity, and hopefully you can use some of the tips and tricks and skills. You can practice your introduction at that event and so on. And you can, use those opportunities to engage with as many different kinds of people as you can, right? And the benefit to you of having those conversations might not be immediately apparent, but think about the people, like exactly what we were just talking about. Those people can introduce you to other people, right? All of that stuff, even if you can't necessarily see a point of immediate connection with them. So be open. Yeah, so questions. Does anyone have any questions before we sum up for the day and head home? Any points that you want to clarify or things that weren't clear?
Okay, so actually it's not a question, but I forgot something to share.
Please.
So when I was looking for someone that might like to playing games, so I kind of observe which one that kind of have a vibe to playing games. Then yeah, my intuition go to Bima right there, and yeah, he wrote playing games as his favorite hobby.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I
What
want to
was
share
it?
that.
Just something about her that made you think that she might be the person?
The glasses. We both have the glasses. Playing games, contact with the monitor, make your eyes broken.
Cool.
So yeah.
Great. I think intuition's a good tool, right? Okay. Any other comments or questions or experiences? Are there things that you find challenging about networking that you don't, that we haven't addressed enough, or burning questions that you have? Yeah.
Hello, it's me again. I have this experience with my supervisor. Actually, he's a very great networker and learn a lot from him. And one of the valuable lessons that he practice is that he connect everyone with his experience. For example, he might be not directly connected to that particular topic, but he try to connect it. For example, I talked to him about me going to Australia, and then to relate with that, he talked about his friends who went to Australia, and then tell me the experience of his friend, so that he tried to relate, to be relatable to everyone. And it's not just this case. Almost every single new person that he met, he tried to be relatable to that person. For example, we met a lot of teachers every single day. We met a lot of new people from central government, regional government, and his approach is the same.
Yeah.
Every single time. He tried to be relatable to everyone so that they can build better connection. They can build like more mutual feelings between one party and another.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Building rapport through empathy.
Yes.
It's a great, thing to point out and piece of advice, right? It's exactly how we build relationships is by demonstrating that we understand and might have similar experiences. And even better if that person connects you with the other people in his network. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, yes.
It might apply for most of the PhD students. So before the University Day information, we might have made a contact with some prospective supervisors, but then there's only one principal supervisor at the end. So what kind of email or things that we can say to the
ones you're rejecting,
the other professors. In fact, we really wanted to still keep the connections with them. Right?
Yeah.
So
you
so
totally
maybe,
should.
So
how can you let them down gently? I think being honest and open is the first thing. So you can say, well, showing gratitude. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, you're willing to be my supervisor. Through the process of attending the university open day or whatever it might be, whatever your reasons, I've actually decided that I'm going to go to this institution and go with this supervisor or you can say who it is, potentially. But of course, I still think that, I'd still like to be in touch. It'd be grateful to spend some time talking with you. Maybe you can potentially review my work, or maybe we can collaborate on a conference paper, or whatever it might be. Just keep that door open, but just say thank you, but actually I've decided to go with somebody else. I really appreciate. It's kind of like dating and letting someone, let them down gently. It's not me, it's not you, it's me. Any other questions? No, okay, great. So to recap, let me just check how we've done. So our objectives for session 1 were, we wanted to persuade you and convince you that it's valuable and worthwhile to spend your time and energy to build your networks. Have we done that? Do you believe that it's worth investing time and energy in it? Yes? Okay, great. For session 2, our objectives were that you would hopefully understand or begin to understand that success in networking depends on adapting to the culture. Yeah? Okay. And that you begin to increase your knowledge of cultural protocols for networking in the Australian context. Do you feel like you know a bit more than you did when you walked into the room this morning? Yes, 3 ticks. Okay, our objective for session 3 was to provide you with some practical advice, tools and techniques for using online networking tools to build relationships in Australia. Yeah, we did it. And for session 4, that you could learn some tools and techniques and tips for face-to-face networking to hopefully build your confidence and make you feel more comfortable and yeah? Have we done it? Okay, and finally, that you have the opportunity to practice those techniques, tools and strategies to build your confidence a bit more. Yeah? Yes. Okay, and so hopefully we'll provide you with some more opportunities to come. And throughout your time in Australia and when you come back as alumni, there are always plenty of opportunities to build your network and network with each other, with business, community, with Australians, with the Australian Embassy, and so on. Okay, so to recap and take-home points. Networking is a skill, and like all skills, you can improve with practice, right? And preparation. Here we go. The better prepared you are, the more comfortable you'll feel, and the more successful that you will be. The more you network, the more comfortable you'll feel, right? It's like learning a new skill. It's like using your English, right? It's like for me learning Indonesian. The more I do it, the more comfortable I feel. Give to get, right? Didn't really talk so much about this, but it was sort of woven through. Be genuine and share something about yourself, because it's going to make the other person more interested in who you are and want to continue the conversation. And it's going to want to make them share about themselves as well, right? I've done this a little bit today by sharing stories about my life, and hopefully that's made me seem more human and less boring. Another aspect of give to get, be generous, right? So the most successful networkers aren't the people that go into a networking event thinking, what can I get out of this? Even though we've talked about that a lot today, and obviously that's an aspect of it, but it's going into a networking event or approaching networking, like how can I help people? How can I connect different people? And, you know, great examples before of like, you should go and talk to that person because they're studying the same thing as you. Right? So if you're generous, people will be generous back to you. Follow-up is critical. And we didn't do this in our networking practice, but you can have as many amazing conversations as you want, but they're only going to be useful to you if you follow up and you continue to build the relationship, to build the rapport, to build trust, and to take that forward. Of course, there's a process of editing as well that happens, right? Like we talked about how there's limited time, limited energy, and you've got to pick the people that you stay in touch with. But it doesn't have to be super time consuming, like just every now and then, once a year, once every couple of years, engage with them, send them a little message on LinkedIn or email or Facebook or Instagram or whatever it might be, however you're connected, and keep the momentum of the relationship going, continue that social capital, because relationships, like anything, the longer they go on without any contact, like you might have built it up to something up here, like everyone's got that school friend, right? You were great friends at school, you haven't been in touch for a while, and eventually it gets to the point where your social capital has depleted with them so much that you don't really feel like you can get in touch with them again. Or maybe you can't ask them for a favor. So you've got to keep topping up that social capital account. Most importantly, networking can be fun. Like it looked like you're all having fun having those conversations. It can be a great way to like find points of connection and other people who are interested in the same things as you are. And you never know when those things are going to pop up, right? When you're going to meet that person that's like, boom, there's like a connection. So approach everybody as like a potential friend. Finally, the point that I want to leave you with is this. Every friend, colleague, and collaborator that you have in your life right now was once a stranger, right? You didn't know them, and those relationships started with a conversation. So that's all. That's all you need to know about networking for now, hopefully. Have conversations. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and attention. It's been a long day, and it's been great. Ina and you've been like terrific to engage with. So thank you for your participation. We'll share a copy of the slides. If you've got any questions, please reach out to us. Thank you to those of you who have already sent connection requests on LinkedIn. I'll respond to them. Yeah. I'd also love to hear your stories about once you go to Australia, if you try any of the strategies that we've recommended and they work, please send me an email and tell me that it's like, or if they don't work, or if you want some advice, let me know. I'd love to hear how you go. So good luck, happy networking.